Aloha mai kako, pakahia pauloa. Welcome to the financial aid update for the 2025-2026 year. Ooh, this is a high school counselor workshop, and all of our college access professionals across the state are with us today. This presentation is being sponsored by Hawaii P20 and, of course, our friends from the Pacific Financial Aid Association. My name is DJ Gusty Gus, live on the air in front of millions and millions of people across the whole world, but especially across the state of Hawaii. It is my honor, nay, it is my privilege to introduce you to your host for today. His greatness transcends the generations and generations of college access professionals across the entire world. His knowledge just exceeds all expectation. He continues to confound professionals across the entire world with his insight and his brilliance. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the godfather of financial aid, Mr. Frank Green.
Aloha, everybody. It's really hard to come on after that. I mean, I'm blushing, I'm choking. It's just, thank you, DJ, for that wonderful introduction. It feels awesome to be loved. Thank you all very, very much and welcome. We really did try to do this in person. I was really excited about going back into person. We're going to make it happen. It's time that we get back together in person and enough of this video stuff. So just some quick housekeeping, not a lot, but as DJ mentioned, we are recording this session. It'll be available to you. It'll be posted up on the collegeiswithinreachhawaii.com. And I saw just recently in the Q&A, somebody was asking about slides or handouts. We will get those posted later this afternoon. We do have the slide deck for you. It will be posted. It'll eventually get posted to the PACFA website as well as the P20. For the time being, the first place to find it, like this afternoon, would be at collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. We'll have them for you there. And if you have any issues finding it, just shoot me an email and I'll get it. We are in webinar format, which means your cameras, microphones, and the chat have been shut down. Please post any questions you do have, and we do expect you to have questions. That's why we've got all the experts with us here today to answer those questions. But please post your questions to the Q&A during the session. The restrooms are directly down the hall to the left or the right. You pick your favorite tree and come back and join us when everything's ready. We're going to start off with some P20 updates. So in doing so, we're going to have DJ Gusty Gus take over the mic again because that's where he is the most natural. He is live on stage, here to rock your world. DJ Gusty Gus. Now, you know who he is because he's the good-looking guy that's part of our team here. And I just love this picture, you guys. This was cool. We're going to turn back over to DJ and let him go through and give you some updates on what's going on the P20 side of things. So,
All
DJ,
right.
you're back on, brother.
Thank you, Godfather. All right. We wanted to start off with a little bit of data, just to inform everybody of where we ended. And of course, this is for our public high schools across the state of Hawaii in terms of FAFSA completion rate. And what we saw this year is a dramatic decline of FAFSA. End of year reporting was June 30th. So this is the July 5th report that came out. We finished with 49.9%, which actually we thought it was going to be a lot worse, considering where we were in March. And you guys all remember when the FAFSA was opening and we didn't have submitted numbers. We didn't have completed numbers. All of the mess that went on this past year, we're hoping to overcome all of that in what we're doing this year. The strategy is to increase FAFSA, increasing access to college, and a college and university pathway. So we did see a sharp decline across public high schools. It was a pretty bad year. We're hoping to put this behind us as we move forward to a better FAFSA. Next slide, please.
It won't move.
There we go. Just citing some key data points and observations from 2024. The highest FAFSA completion across the state was 65.2%. This was a decline from last year, as expected. We had some schools in 2023 that were across around 80%. I think it was the highest FAFSA completion rate for 2023. Only six schools had a FAFSA completion rate higher of 60%. So that shows you how challenging the FAFSA was last year. 3,388 FAFSA applications were submitted before March 15. 1,368 FAFSA applications were completed after March 15. So that shows you kind of where we were in the completion status across public high schools. The interesting thing is that only 564 FAFSA applications were completed after May 20. And we use that date because that highlights graduation season, but it also represents the time when students don't have you guys to help them across the state. And we're completing the FAFSA after school really ended. That number was actually higher in 2023. So it really shows us that there weren't a lot of students doing FAFSA during the summertime, despite all of the efforts to really get more students to complete the FAFSA, despite the dropping numbers of FAFSA across the state. 5,044 FAFSA applications were submitted, and 4,756 FAFSA applications were completed by July 5th total for the state of Hawaii across public high schools. This is kind of interesting because it shows you how many students left some money on the table by not completing this FAFSA process. Next slide, please. The Cash for College FAFSA Challenge is going to be rebooted this year. We are going to try to go back to a March 15th date and a May 30th date. But the official announcement will be coming in October, so please look out for that. I will be sending this out. Of course, the Cash for College Challenge, FAFSA Challenge, is for public high schools across the state of Hawaii. We're going to give two exciting ways to win this contest. $800 for every high school that meets their 2023 number. We're going to be challenging high schools to get back to 2023. We're thinking 2024 was such an anomaly that we're going to be pushing everybody to get back to 2023 and reach those numbers again and surpass them in 2025. We're going to be awarding $1,000 and $500 to high schools with the highest overall percentage as of May 30. We're thinking that is an exciting way to kind of galvanize you guys through this challenging period. And we're going to see how the FAFSA works. As usual, high schools must opt in to participate. That was something we implemented last year, and we really, really enjoyed the fact that our principals were right on top of us and supporting us along the way. That helps with us institutionalizing the FAFSA into the very fabric of the high school campus. High schools must share the FSAID creation, FAFSA completion events. That's something we're throwing in this year because we want to know what are the key strategies that are working for our high schools. We want to continue to innovate. We want to continue to push the envelope in terms of getting students to complete the FAFSA. Next slide, please. Next week is our Gear Up for College week. It's time to lock in for students. You're going to be hearing promotion across the state of Hawaii. You're going to be seeing DJ Gusty Gus live on the radio and I think on television sometimes. The next week, we're going to be really kicking off Gear Up for College week with a whole bunch of promotion. If you're interested in holding a college planning event, still we have room for you. We have materials and we have support that we can lend you if you guys are interested in holding a Gear Up for College event. School by school events are going on. They're college planning events across the state. They're FSAID workshops, financial aid presentations, college aspiration workshops, college planning parent nights, and peer mentor presentations. This does not need to be done during college week. So if you're interested in including some of the Gear Up for College week stuff, we can still add that in throughout the semester. So don't worry if you don't have your stuff going. It's a great time to just push students to lock in for their college planning season. Next slide. Want to alert everybody to Scholarship AHA this year. Scholarship AHA is bringing together all of the opportunities for Native Hawaiians in one place. It is not just intended for Native Hawaiians. All students are able to attend these events. These are virtual, live, in-person scholarship events that are focused on the community level for students and families to access. And these events are going to be going on across the state of Hawaii. The first one will be at Kapiolani Community College on November 13th. From there, Kauai Community College Scholarship AHA will be November 19th. We're going to go out to Nanakuli, and Kamehameha Schools will be hosting the Scholarship AHA in Nanakuli on November 20th at the Kalani Ho'okaha Community Center. Then we're going to go to Maui. The University of Hawaii Maui College will be sponsoring Scholarship AHA on November 21st, 2024. Lanai Community College will be on November 25th. Windward Community College will be on December 4th. And then we're going to go out to Hilo. And our Hilo Scholarship AHA will be December 5th with Molokai on December 12th. And then we're going to be having a virtual Zoom Scholarship AHA event for students and families who didn't get to come in person to one of our smaller community events. And that will be done on January 15th. We want to let you guys know that registration will be launched either today. We're hoping for today or by the latest Monday for all Scholarship AHA activities. And you guys will be receiving promotion either distributed through email or we can send out to you. The flyers will be posted to the colleges within reachhawaii.com and also the Native Hawaiian Education Association website at nhea.me.
Hey, DJ, just for clarification here, our virtual AHA in January will actually be January 2025.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Not 2024. We are going to keep moving forward in our process.
Next slide, please. College application events will continue to be going on. I know you guys, high schools, are coordinating application events. Our CES steering committee is still available to support our friends. So if you guys need any help with college application events, encouraging students to submit their college application, please do reach out to me. We can help you guys along the way with making sure you have representatives from across all 10 of our University of Hawaii campuses. You can even request a college speaker at collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. Our UH application data initiative will be launched in official announcement will be coming in October. But this is, remember, this is a way for you guys to access who has applied from your school to all 10 of the University of Hawaii campuses. And you guys get this list every 2 weeks, starting in late November. And it provides you a list of students who have applied to one of the 10 campuses. And it's a great way for you guys to target students for support and making sure that they, number one, complete some of the action items on their application, identify any deficiencies in their application, and also ensure that they are following through with all of the things having to do when they transition to the onboarding period and making sure that they are getting their butts in the seat. It does provide a list of health clearances, majors and programs that were put on the application so that you guys can see that information. This will be a principal opt-in form. So you guys need to make sure that principal signs and returns this opt-in form for you guys to receive this information. Principal will designate who on the campus will receive that information. We're hoping that it is you guys working directly with students who are designated to receive this information. It's a great way when you cross-reference the FAFSA completion data and submission data that you're going to be getting with the UH application data, so we can really put some support mechanisms around these students. The first application data initiative, email will come out the 3rd week of November. Thank you guys. And yeah, any questions? I'm here. I'll be here. You guys know how to reach me. Duska@hawaii.edu is always my email. You can always give me a call as well. Let's see. Any questions in
DJ,
there?
yeah, there are a few questions, and if
Okay.
you'll bear with me, I'll feed them to you. There was one comment that it would be nice if there was a West Hawaii event for Scholarship AHA. I think you did mention that there was a Nanakuli event that'll be happening for one of the AHAs.
Yes, on Oahu, but absolutely. We are noticing that there is a gap, and we would love to put that together. Um, we we would welcome any input or any advice on where we could go for a West Hawaii scholarship. So yeah, please reach out to me, Aaron. I can definitely address that. Let's
Got it.
see.
Sorry, Aaron, I messed that up. I was reading it totally wrong. Um, when might the principal receive the request for them to sign and return back to opt-in?
Great question. That's going to be done in October. So we're going to be sending out the request forms. The official announcement will be sent out through Steve Schatz, and then that email will be sent directly to principals, and principals will sign it. We will alert you guys. Hopefully, we'll CC you guys on this email so that you guys can see that your principal receives it, and you guys are part of the communication strands directly to our principals.
And that was a question or an issue raised in a couple different emails of, can the counselors be CC'd on that? Will they be informed that it's gone out to the principal so that they can follow up and make sure that it gets done?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to make sure that you guys are CC'd on this presentation. This takes a little bit of coordination on our part, but yeah, it's vital for you guys to know that principals receive this information, and that information gets returned, and you guys are ready to go. Yeah, great questions, you guys. Thank you.
And I think that's all we've got at the moment for questions. So we will go ahead and continue. Coming up next is Amy Akana with the University of Hawaii Common Scholarship application. And the first thing that I have to tell you is that Amy's not here. Amy has just become a college mother and is currently on the mainland taking her daughter to college and saying goodbye and shedding tons of tears and things like that. So she sends her love. Unfortunately, she was unable to be here, but she did provide the information and briefed our very own DJ Gusty Gus. So we've asked him to kind of go through things with you for the update to the UH Common Scholarship application. So DJ, take a drink, catch your
All right.
breath. We're back up to you, brother.
Okay, the UH system application. Yeah, don't adjust your cameras. I'm not as lovely as Amy is. So big shout out to Amy. We appreciate her so much. Who can apply? So this scholarship is intended for students applying, attending any of the campuses of the University of Hawaii system. So I'll take campuses. If you're a student going to be going to UH, you are eligible to apply for this scholarship. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more back, Frank. So the UH System Common Scholarship application is one application for many different scholarships. It's a really great format. The application is available. It will start October 1st. The cool thing about this scholarship opening so early is that students get a whole bunch of time to put together their application because it closes on March 3rd, 2025. This this is really great. The new Warrior scholarships are determined as part of the admissions process. And these are merit-based scholarships for high achieving 2024 high school graduates as well. Next slide, please. You can access the UH Common Scholarship application at hawaii.edu/tuition/scholarships. And this is kind of what it looks like. The application checklist is you must be a University of Hawaii system student. So that means you must have already applied to access this application. Okay. You must complete the FAFSA. It's not required for this process, but it is definitely encouraged. So we're hoping that FAFSA is factored into students' plans as they do this application because it opens up the different opportunities available to students. Transcripts are required. And there's a transcript slide that I'm going to kind of go into the transcript process, but also contact information for recommendations, including identifying at least 3 people who can provide a recommendation. General essays, and then optional essays for certain scholarships. And if we can give this advice to students, this is definitely where we want students to be looking and spending some of their time for these optional essays. It's a great way to have students access some of these smaller scholarships that require an essay and give them a greater opportunity, because frankly, students don't do the optional thing sometimes. And then they must complete the application, their actual application to be get scholarships. So admissions is a key part of this application. They need to apply for admissions to one of the 10 campuses in the University of Hawaii system at hawaii.edu/admissions. Students must have a UH student email address before they can apply for a scholarship. So again, this is part of the process. They need to be admitted. They need to be finish their application so that they can generate their UH credentials and be a verified student of UH before they can apply for the scholarship. Next slide. If you are an incoming freshman, you're going to be utilizing your high school transcript. So that's ensuring that your high school transcript gets sent directly to the school. So we are encouraging our students to continue to upload the transcript as part of the process of applying. We know that the university application right now is having an issue with that direct link with the HIDOE student ID numbers. So that right now is an issue that we're trying to get through. That's no longer on the application. For the 3 4-year universities. The transfer student, if you are a transfer student from a non-UH school, you would want to utilize your official college transcripts too. But if you are already a UH student and will be utilizing a UH transcript, there's no need to upload any of that information, because that information is accessed directly from the scholarship team. Next slide, please. We are recommending that students have at least 1 to 3 references for this scholarship application with 3 email addresses. So names and email addresses for 1 to 3 references. We're recommending that students contact references before listing them on the application. This is always the plus that we need to push our students to do, making sure that students have contacted their references and have agreed to be a reference for that student. They can track letters of recommendations even after submitting the application, which is really, really a cool aspect of the application. Again, deadlines for students and email recommenders is March 3rd, 2025. The deadline for recommenders to submit is a week after that, March 10, 2025. Next slide, please. They've changed the essay process a little bit this year, and I'm a big fan of what they've done to make this a little more streamlined and a little more targeted, I think, with the essays that they're asking for. They're going to be focusing on financial need, growth and resilience, and an academic pathway. 300-word maximum is going to be the personal statement. So if you think about it, these are really just a 1-page personal statement and shorter essays targeted at these questions. So you really want students to be really succinct in the writing of these scholarship essays. Financial need question is required. The rest are optional. So this shows you that some students aren't going to go through with writing those additional essays, and they're so encouraged to do. So we got to continue to push our students to do the optional. From there, they want to continue to have the optional essays tied to specific scholarships, only needed if students want to be considered for that scholarship fund. Next slide, please.
Next essay. Let's write another essay.
Next essay. So the new general essay questions are right here. how are you currently planning to pay for college? And this is the required one, the required trying to identify barriers for students and really really looking at the big things in students' lives that are impacting their ability to be successful in college. Do you anticipate financial challenges during the upcoming year? If so, how do you plan to manage them? Yeah, so really kind of straightforward, sharing out the barriers and then also um, the resilience of the student to overcome these challenges. The second essay question is describe an experience that helped you grow as a person. How did you how did it help you grow? How did you demonstrate initiative in achieving addressing it? And what did you learn that you can apply in future situations? A really great growth mindset time for students to showcase that. And then finally, the third question is why did you choose the major you intend to pursue in college? How does it align with your specific academic interests, strengths, and career goals? These are pretty general questions that students can have an innovative, exciting way to really exemplify what makes them special as a student. So we really want students to take their time with these general essays, which is why the scholarship opens up in October, going all the way to March. Next slide, please. All right. Once you submit your applications, you cannot make any changes. So this is kind of one of the standards that have gone on with the evolution of the UH Common Scholarship application. So we want students to make sure that the application is complete and accurate before they press that submit button. Because, of course, the progress that they are doing as they're completing the application will be saved and will continue to be saved. But once they hit that submit button, there are no changes that can be made after that. And next slide. And if you have any questions, I want you guys to call up my friend Amy Akana at the University of Hawaii System Scholarship Office at 808-956-6203, or you can email directly at scholars@hawaii.edu. Back to you, Godfather.
Cool. Thank you very much for stepping up there, DJ. Greatly appreciate that. And that's always good information coming out of the UH Foundation. Our next presenter is Jen Murphy. We're happy to see her again on our Friday. Jen is with the Hawaii Community Foundation, and it's all you, Jen.
Thank you. All right, so yes, here to talk about the 25-26 HCF Common Scholarship application, and there's our lovely website there. So agenda, three main things: the scholarship program overview, the FAFSA update, and some helpful tips. So why apply for HCF scholarships? Basically, one online application may qualify you for over 300 scholarship funds, and this over 7 million in scholarship awards, it keeps ticking up every year as we get additional funds. So always possible that that number could, reach up to 8 million. We'll see, fingers crossed, depending on our funds available. So the average scholarship is about 6,000, and we do let students know that 32% of our awardees receive multiple scholarships. This is because many of our scholarships actually do have very specific criteria, and we do try to basically award out rather than saying you already got one award, so you're not going to get another. So we just basically let students know that that average scholarship could be multiple scholarships, not necessarily one for 6,000. The application updates. So in previous years, we had kind of been open mid-November to end of January, then that became mid-February, and now it has become late February. And a huge reason why we decided to open late last year and this year is because of the FAFSA changes and how disruptive they have been. So in line with that, we will open again on December 12th. We will close again on the last day of February, which this year, as it's not a leap year, will be February 28th. And then there will be 2 additional weeks for letters of recommendation, knowing that actually it's usually about 30% of our applicants apply on that last day, which would make it nearly impossible for letters of for recommenders to actually complete that. So that allows recommenders for those people, especially who applied on the last day, to have 2 weeks. One thing that I had mentioned was that because of all the FAFSA issues, we did push it back. but the FAFSA submission summary form is not required. It's highly recommended. What I will note here is that we have moved away in recent years of making it required, but that does not mean that we do not highly encourage students to do it, because the vast majority of our funds do have a need component. And we need information to be able to determine that. The most likely source to be able to determine that is still the FAFSA submission summary, but we do, like UH, ask additional questions about finances. We don't usually ask for every single particular about your situation, but enough information for us to be able to determine that, yes, you do have financial need, and we can consider you for those scholarships that have a need component. Next slide. All right, so how do we apply? As in previously, hawaiicommunityfoundation.org is our main site, and you can absolutely go through all these lovely links, but the easiest way is to go up to the top right and click on students. That will then take you to this page. You'll have to scroll down, and then at the bottom of lots of different information will be this log into scholarship manager. Once you click on that, then it'll take you to the login. Now, you'll see information here. It lets you know that, for instance, the Common Scholarship application for 24-25 is now closed. We've completed it. So that's one thing that I do want to mention about this page as well. It allows you to log in and or create a scholarship account, but usually it also provides updates on where we are in the scholarship process. So at this point, it says Common Scholarship application closed. Now we'll move towards having updates on 25-26 that will then help students know application is now open, application is now closed, we're now reviewing applications, that kind of thing. So anytime students kind of want to know where we are, this is a good place to come for that information. Next slide. So transcripts. This is actually the only real required document this year. Part of that is it used to also say transcripts and FAFSA submission summary, but this year it will just be transcripts, and it must contain name of student, name of school, course history and grades, and cumulative GPA. We do mention that transcripts do not have to be official. Unofficial or online transcripts are okay, as long as it contains all of these things. And you'll see if it is a required document, there will be that and our question, there will be that asterisk to let you know that it must be submitted. Otherwise, the system will basically stop you and say error, go back, attach, etc. All right, so again, similar to UH, we no longer, and haven't for a few years, required a personal statement. It's shorter essays. And the two that have been there for the past few years are these two. What inspire you to choose your field of study and academic plan, as well as how your academic plans help you to give back to the community. We do tell students that because our system does time you out after 45 minutes, it's much easier to prepare this in a Word document or some other form outside of the system, and then cut and paste. And then basically it will save, like they were saying. You can go in, cut, paste, move on, and then you can also come back up to the deadline when we need you to actually press that submit button. Next slide. As for the optional documents and questions, optional documents, like we're saying, FAFSA submission summary, similar to UH, the letters of recommendation, can request up to 3. One thing that we do mention in ours is the Kamehameha Schools Verification Services letter. Some of our scholarships are specifically for Native Hawaiian students, and so it does require that attachment for those specific awards. The other thing is the SAT, ACT scores. This is for high school seniors only, and it's really mostly used for scholarships that specifically require it, such as our Epstein scholarship, which does require that students upload documentation that shows those scores. The optional questions are more yes, no, short answers, essays. Each year, the application has looked very different. Again, this is my third scholarship season, and every year we've moved things around. And the whole idea is to be more efficient with the questions that we ask. And so we have been moving a lot more towards yes, no, select all. And so it allows for students to kind of move through it quicker than having to do fill in the blank. Affiliation questions. So as I was saying with the select all, this is one of the ones where students would go in and select one or more and or the not, or sorry, I should say or not applicable. One thing that stops students a lot actually from hitting that submit button is they look to see this doesn't apply to me and they go forward. They must at least go in and select the choose not applicable. Otherwise, they cannot submit their application. The other thing I always point out with this is go really slowly through these lists because as we were saying previously about the not being able to return once you hit that submit button, this is the question that I get the most. Students say, oh, wait, my parent is an employee of ABC Stores, or I am. And I'm going, well, it was in that affiliation. And they're like, oh man, I missed it. So I always suggest you go very slowly through these ones where you have to look through the list to verify that the answer is not applicable before you move forward. All right, so the next part is the helpful resources. Now this is for students, but also can be for teachers and counselors as well, because it is our 2024-2025 flyer. We put this on here so that anyone can really access it and share it because it's not really a secret. We're trying to get the word out. And this changes each year. The other thing that we are actually still in the process of updating is the scholarship frequently asked questions. Now these frequently asked questions also have a timeline as well as a bunch of different questions that student ask us through our email and hotline. The big thing about that is, of course, that we know that students don't necessarily read through every piece of it, but it is there. There is a lot of information there. So if they go there, most likely the answer will be there, but they can also always reach out to us with additional questions.
Oops,
No worries.
here we go.
Again, the important dates: application opens December 12th, closes February 28th, and then the letter of recommendation deadline is March 14th, 2025. What I will say is that, don't worry about it, you can leave it there. What I will say is that the letters of recommendation are definitely ones that, again, you want to definitely make sure that you've already reached out to them, but you can go into the system and see, oh, wait, this person didn't do one and they're not going to be able to do it. You can remove them and add someone else. The maximum is 3, so you will need to remove one of your recommenders in order to add an additional one, and make sure to do that well in time for the letters of recommendation deadline. For helpful tips, start early. That includes submitting your FAFSA as soon as possible, obtaining your transcript as soon as possible. And then the other aspect is if you need to get these different materials and then turn them into a PDF, that also allows you additional time to just get everything ready. Answer all questions accurately. So what we do say is every question is tied to a scholarship opportunity. And that includes things like, what is the highest level of education for your parent? And a question like that is used to determine whether or not a student would be considered for scholarships for first generation. So that's the thing, is you go through all these different questions, some of them select all, and those answers will be used to determine what scholarships you're eligible for, including these optional essays as well. So again, answer as many questions as possible and answer as accurately as possible, because if you say, yes, I'm going to this school or went to this school. So we have scholarships for high schools. And if you select a high school, then potentially there's a scholarship for only students from that high school. And you will only see that question if you've selected the proper high school. So again, just being very careful, knowing that it's an iterative process, or they can kind of dynamic, so it can change. Preparing essays, sorry, a few more. Preparing essays ahead of time, like I said, easy cutting and pasting, and also can help you in terms of making sure, spell check, grammar check, all those things. Makes it easier for our folks to read through them. Submit your application for deadline day. Again, 30% of our applicants, at least, try to get it in on that last day. And this year we had almost 4,300 applicants. So imagine 30% of those trying to get it on the last day in a system that's not necessarily designed to do that. So being, kicked out or trying to hit that submit button and getting an error can be very stressful. So please, please, please do not wait. Contacting us. So here's our email, our phone line, and our website. We have a team now that's grown. When I first started, there were there were 4, and then there were 5, now there's 6. So we're all there to help out as much as possible. Okay, so a few things that I wanted to point out. One, our system and University of Hawaii's scholarship system are the same. We use the same vendor, which means sometimes students get confused between the two, and they cannot use the same email for both. So make sure that it's different. The other thing that I would love for students to understand, and this is just from years of getting questions, is it's not, our scholarships are for, first year through grad school. So if a student doesn't get a scholarship in the first year, it does not necessarily mean that they won't get one in sophomore, junior, senior year. Actually, we tend to see a huge drop between freshman and sophomore year applicants. So again, please, please, please encourage them that it's rough potentially if they didn't get one the first year, but please, please, please encourage them to apply every year that they're in school, because we even have some scholarships that are specifically for junior, specifically for senior. And some students, after that first year, they just decide potentially it's not worth it for them for, whatever reason, or maybe they just don't continue on, but just encourage them to apply every year that they're in school. All right. We've got questions.
I think there are some. DJ, can you feed Jen her questions?
I absolutely can.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, Jen. First question up is, I've worked at UH for almost 4 years and I've never had a student get awarded through HCF. While I push it out for a lot, is priority given to only Native Hawaiians?
Each fund is very specific. So we do, like I was mentioning, we do have some scholarships that are specifically for Native Hawaiians, but we also have some scholarships for other groups, even in terms okay, so we have scholarships that are specifically for mainland. We have scholarships that are specific to a school, but then within that, it could be you must major in a certain thing. You must be at a certain enrollment level. You must have done community service. So we have those super, super broad ones. It's just 2.0 GPA, resident of the state of Hawaii, and financial need. And then on the other side, we have some scholarships with 10 plus criteria. And those are going to be a lot harder to get depending. Or if you are the exact one student that meets all 10 criteria, then you might have an even greater shot. So it just kind of depends scholarship to scholarship. But keep in mind that we have, like I said, over 300 funds, and each one can make a difference. So we just say keep applying. And if you have specific questions about other parts of that process, but yeah, you can definitely go in and search. We have a scholarship search. You can see all the different criteria for each of the scholarships that we've got, and you'll see it varies greatly.
Jen, what is the length of the shorter essay responses? If you give us a general outline of shorter essays.
I don't know what our character count's going to be. It's usually around the 300, but some of them are less. We're still trying to fine tune exactly how we want those to look. What I will say is that you don't need to go into great detail in terms of, don't necessarily worry about the length of it, more the content of making sure that you answer the questions to the best of your ability.
Yeah. The word count for short, the same question. Word count for short essays. And you mentioned character count instead of word count, correct?
Yes, so that is one of the struggles about cutting and pasting, is that it might not directly align, but to my knowledge, no one's come back and argued because they wanted to put in more. At least in my years so far in scholarships, so like, I wanted to write 3 more paragraphs. It's usually like, what is the least amount that I can potentially write? And there is no it's so I should make that differentiation. We do not have minimum amounts, we have maximum amounts. So it's
Okay.
a maximum amount that people can write, not necessarily like you must write 300 words. It's like you can write up to 300 words at your discretion.
Here's a great question considering what we went through last year with the FAFSA FSS or FAFSA submission summary. Will students be able to submit the FAFSA FSS after HCF application window has closed?
What I will say is we tried to do that this year and it didn't work very well, because by the time we're starting to do um, our review, we really already need that information. So in terms of, as soon as applications close, we start reviewing people. And so it makes it difficult if we're getting, financial information from one student the next week and then someone else 2 months from now. By that point, we might have already made a decision for any number of our funds. So what I will say is, again, it's not required, and there's nothing to gain by applying on day one. If at all possible, wait until you have that information and then upload it um, as you can. And if not, answer those financial need questions to explain the situation so that we still have information to review to verify some level of financial need.
What is the timeline for when scholarships are to be released? Or I guess could you go over that again?
Okay, so applications close at the end of February. The letters of recommendation are mid-March. We normally start our review process as soon as we can after that, and our kind of plan every year is to get it at least by May 1st. We've been moving that forward. So the bulk of our scholarships were actually about a week before that the last 2 years. Normally about 6 to 7 days prior to that May 1st, when we can, as we can. And that allows for students, especially those first year students, to have that information before they potentially have to put down a deposit.
Okay. Given that the UH application and the HCF application are using the same system, so students should not use their UH email?
Correct. So basically it gets confusing because the system thinks they already have an account. So it will literally say, account is already there. Make sure you know your password, or you can reset your password. So the system needs you to have one for UH and one for HCF in order to think it's 2 separate applications.
Okay. Yeah, bunch of questions just on that email question. So thank you for clarifying that. Are the requirements to apply for HCF different once a student is in college?
Well, so once a student is in college, we do not require any of the like ACT, SAT scores, but also it's based on their current college transcript. So one thing that a lot of students, they'll get into their second and third year and they'll still upload their high school transcript, but we need their most recent high school transcript. And so that can cause issues. So I would say the one main difference is it should be the most current college transcript. And then the other aspect of it is we do have a number of scholarships that are specifically for first year and or graduating senior, and those are different. And so the only other piece is you would no longer, as a sophomore, junior, senior, necessarily be eligible for that first year scholarship, but you might be eligible for a scholarship that's specifically for sophomores, juniors, seniors, or open to anyone regardless of class standing.
Can you repeat for us the deadlines again?
So it's February 28th and for application and March 14th for letters of recommendation.
Okay. And are most of the scholarships awarded renewable for 4 years, or is it just 1 year that you need to apply every single year?
So I'm going to actually take that as two questions. Number one is, are any of our scholarships renewable? And the answer is yes, but they do require an application every single year, and that's to verify continued eligibility. However, it is fund by fund. So some scholarships may be renewable, some may not. What we're trying to do is within, so if you look in Scholarship Manager, if you look at all of the descriptions within that, you'll see that the ones that do have a plan for renewal, so we can't guarantee it, is what I should say. We can't guarantee renewal each year. It's, it can that can change in terms of, budget, applicant pool, if a student still meets eligibility, etc. But it will say preference for renewals for all of those funds in which students who have received it previously would be considered first, basically, before we start to look at new applicants.
Really great question here. Can students utilize the CSS profile through College Board instead of the FAFSA?
I've never been asked that question. So I don't know if we would necessarily say yes, but what I will say is this. We do prefer the FAFSA, mainly because the main reason why I think we even started using it in the first place and want to continue to use it is because it will allow students to also be considered for federal and state aid, etc. So the main reason really why we try to push that is because, well, it's free also because CSS profile isn't always free. But the other aspect is it will allow them to be considered for other types of aid external to our organization.
Yeah, those are great points. And finally, to clarify, all essays are by character count and not word count.
I wouldn't. So now I'm questioning myself. I'm going to open up our application real quick.
Yes, the gallery demands.
I would rather give you the proper response.
Well, you have to, otherwise they're going to come back at you. They know where to find you.
Well, the thing, I could say I believe. Okay, so we did change that. So now it's maximum length. So in our so one other thing to explain. So we've got questions, and then we've got notes underneath those things. And so our current note says max length 150 words. And that's specifically for the financial need question, depending. So one of our others about the college journey, and so we have asked one last year that's basically like, along your college journey, do you expect any sort of challenges? And we made that 300 words. So that would be one other thing to note, is that not every one of our essays has the same word count. So check that the notes underneath the application question to see, okay, this one's 300, this one's 150, this one's 200, depending. One thing we might consider this year before it officially goes live is just making all of them the same. But there are just some questions that we only really want a few sentences, and others we want them to go into a lot more detail. So that would be the main reason why those word counts would vary across questions.
Okay. Rest of the questions are about the UH Common Scholarship applications, so I'll get to those. Godfather, back to you.
Very good. Let's keep going here. Our next presenter is my sister from Kaneohe. Day Mao is here to fill us in on the newest with Kamehameha Schools. So Day,
Aloha,
time to
my kako.
There we go. You're on, girl.
Aloha. Welcome. I'm so excited for this season. I feel like, we haven't seen each other for such a long time. I'm going to be going over two things today, the Kamehameha Schools KS College Scholarships and the Pauahi Foundation Scholarship Portfolio. Contact information is there. I'm going to go over some of our information about Kamehameha Schools in general and then get right into it. So first things first, Kamehameha Schools offers multiple opportunities for college scholarships through our two separate programs. KS College Scholarships, which many of you are more familiar with the name Naho Kama'a Pauahi. We have over the years added more scholarship funding to that portfolio. We have the Ho'okawowo, and we've had some other programs and scholarships come up that we've added to that. We also have our Pauahi Foundation scholarships, which are privately funded by individual donors, which is currently it's over 170 scholarships, over almost 200. So lots of opportunity. One of the primary vehicles of that, next slide, please, is verifying Hawaiian ancestry through our Ho'oulu verification services. So this is a part of Kamehameha School's mission, is to apply preference to those who are verified as Native Hawaiian. The process is open year-round. For a lot of students, they do this process as early as 3 years old, and they can continue to do this process all the way into adulthood. What's important to note is, one, you do not have to complete the verification process prior to applying for any of our scholarship programs. And it's timing. It's really important because the verification process doesn't have a hard deadline, but our scholarships, they do. So it is okay if you didn't verify your Hawaiian ancestry prior to applying. What's most important is you start the process and you finish your scholarship applications by those designated deadlines. Any Kamehameha Schools Resource Center can help you with both of these processes. What you can advise families to do is they can contact our offices to check if they're already verified, and we can tell them. We can resend our very beautifully printed special paper verification letters to students, so they can then turn them into the Hawaiian Civic Club or to Hawaii Community Foundation, as Jen had mentioned, or the UH Foundation if there's a scholarship that would like a copy of that letter. It does take 5 to 10 business days to get that letter out. So we do recommend that as we start this process, those of you who have students that are Native Hawaiian, have them contact our offices right away. If they are verified, we can send them a new letter and it can be waiting. And then when they do need to forward it, they can scan it and upload it or print it or make photocopies of it and have it on its way to all of the other organizations that may want a copy of that. So that's something they can do right away. They can do it tomorrow. They can do it today. They can get that process started. So it's good to get a jump on it. So we don't have them waiting till the last minute and have this one piece of paper be the stumbling block for a lot of opportunities. Next slide, please. So the process is super easy. They complete a form, they submit their birth records, they submit all of that stuff to us, and then we turn around and complete the verification process. So they can go over that information with us one-on-one. This is just to give you a little bit of heads up of what the process includes. Many of you help families that have different situations that might not be always their parents with them. So you have a general idea of what is expected. Next slide, please. So for the Kamehameha School Scholarship, basic criteria are Hawaii resident, full-time student, classified and degree seeking in an AA all the way through a master's, PhD, law, or doctorate degree. They express financial need and they meet Kamehameha School's funding guidelines. So funding guidelines are determined by the years that we funded them and the degree that they're seeking. So students potentially will get 2 years to get their AA, and we'll give them 4 years to get their BA or their bachelor's degree, and that would be in combination with those first 2 years from their associate. Next slide, please. Side note, Hawaii residency is a requirement. However, students can be attending college on the continent. So that doesn't mean that they have to reside and live and go to college in Hawaii. We also do recognize that many colleges are online. So if the college offers online courses, they are eligible. They don't actually have to be physically in the seat every single day. All right, so Kamehameha Schools has decided for the 25-26 academic year to continue using the CSS profile. So we are going to holomo with that. I will say that the reason we do this is because our process takes a really long time. We have a lot of moving pieces. We have a lot of approval process. We have a lot of scholarships that come into our doors. We need time to process them, but we also want to be sensitive to the timeline of students' need to find out when they're awarded. So unfortunately, we would love to be able to say, let's all use the FAFSA SSA report in determining financial need, but based on what's going on right now, our hope is in the future we can do that. But for now, we need to be able to adhere to a timeline so we can notify families by May on whether or not they're awarded. And along with that, wrap up that process and get those checks cut and sent to the schools by August. So this is really the vehicle that we will be using in the interim until we, hopefully fingers, eyes, toes, everything crossed, that we could at some point be able to utilize the FAFSA report again. A CSS profile process, 3 steps. You complete the online CSS profile. They must include Kamehameha school code on there. Step 2, they'll upload their 2023 federal tax documents for the parents or themselves. If they filed on their own, they'll submit theirs, and then their family, they're the parents. Step 3 is completing what was formerly known as KSNet Partners. It's called the KS College Application Portal, and they'll complete the final steps in there, monitor their application status, and also monitor if awarded the disbursements, all in that application portal. Please note, we are instituting a renewal process that's abbreviated. So our definition there on the left-hand side, new applicants are defined as students who did not receive Kamehameha Schools College Scholarship disbursements in the 24-25 school year. It's very important to note it's a disbursement, meaning if they got awarded or they applied and they didn't use funding from us at all in 24-25, they are not considered a renewal. Students who did apply and receive Kamehameha Schools Scholarship disbursements in 24-25 who are now pursuing a new college degree. They're transitioning from AA to BA, BA to master's, master's to PhD. It's considered a new degree, and they would be considered a new applicant. Next slide, please. So this renewal process, how does that work, and who is eligible for that? So then the renewal applicant is defined as a student who did receive KS College Scholarship funding and disbursement in the 24-25 school year, and students who are still pursuing the same college degree. So they're in year 2 of college, 3, so on and so forth. They will be emailed in early October by Kamehameha Schools with a link and information regarding their renewal process. They will complete their renewal process in the KS College Scholarship Application Portal and complete their reflection questions and additional documentation as required. Deadlines are all the same, January 15th. We do want to give you guys a heads up, just because we know a lot of you do still continue to get information or get calls from students who are already graduating from your schools. We know that we have a lot of you who have multiple siblings in the same household coming to you for help and not understanding why there's 2 parts of the process. We don't expect you to be a master of all of this, but giving you some information on how it works So you have a better idea of when two siblings come in and tell you, how come I did it this way and my sister only had one question to answer? This is the reason. Next slide, please. I'm also going to go over the Pauahi Foundation Scholarship. So a great thing about Pauahi Scholarship is it's over almost 200 scholarships, individually funded scholarships with a one-time common application. So requirement, nice thing to note, Hawaii residency is not required. So if you have interactions with students who are not residents of Hawaii, this is their option. Full-time and half-time are allowed depending on the scholarship fund. And students must be classified in a degree-seeking program. Next slide, please. Application will open October 15th at 8 a.m. Deadline is December 15th at 5 p.m. Kamehameha Schools class of 2025, which is their seniors, all three campuses must use their emua.ksbe.edu email address in order to be eligible. All other applicants can use whatever email addresses that they frequently check. There is a multi-step process. We do require the online application. We have a personal statement essay. We have a list of extracurricular activities and community service, a full transcript, and letter of recommendation, and supplemental information may be required for additional funding. Jen went over some really great points about essays and what to expect on what to do. I'm going to tag on to her and recommend you guys start talking to your students about creating a curriculum vitae for themselves. Resume has a little short, little snippet about them. It includes all of their community service work, extracurricular activities, references. These are all things that if they don't actually turn in their curriculum vitae, they actually can copy and paste it into an application question. So something to really start talking to students about. It is becoming something more prevalent. Also, the question about what are your extracurricular and community service activities are becoming much more important in the evaluation process across the board for a lot of colleges, universities, and scholarship funders. So definitely, that's a highlight point we'd like you guys to take away and start talking to your students about creating one of those for themselves. Other than that, tips for success. Apply early. We always would like the opportunity to review the application early so we can go back and forth with you and get the information we need to make you complete. Kamehameha Schools and Pauahi Foundation goal is to get every application complete. For many of you, you work with families with challenging or maybe not your typical family dynamic or academic or social situation. And there's a lot of moving parts in that. The best advice we can offer is have them apply early because we will work with them and come alongside them and find out what we need to make them complete and give them the best possible chance for funding. And you can do that by sending them to one of our resource centers or our workshops or our AHAs to meet our staff, also to get one-on-one help. If you are in an area or you have families that are challenged with computer technology or access to a computer or a printer or any of those things, our resource centers have those items available for them to use. It's no charge. We'll sit with them. We have a TV in my office. We can play some music. We can, chat with Frank online to get some questions answered about his FAFSA if we need it. We're super happy to help. You don't need to make an appointment. Our offices are open Monday through Friday, usually between 8 and 4. We also love to attend the NHEA AHAs, so we like to have staff there to help, and we usually help Frank and Gus man stations to help with FAFSAs and CSS profiles. So no be shame. Send your families over. We'll help them out as best we can. Locations and information about all of our scholarships are available at the Kamehameha Schools website. Most of the information will get loaded probably towards the end of the month. You can review current year's information there. You can access information about the verification services by either calling or emailing us. We want you guys to understand, we know that there's a lot of work to be done and you guys get the brunt of them because you're physically there at the school. So we want to, extend the hand out to you guys and say, hey, send them our way. We'll help them out as best that we can. If we don't have the answer, we'll point them in the right direction. If it's FAFSA, we have Frank's phone number, so we can help them with that as well. Any questions?
Okay. Lots of questions in the queue for you.
Oh, okay.
When a minor student requests the HAR form, is the envelope addressed to the student or the parent?
Both. So it'll list the parent or the person who requested it. So depending, technically the student can request the form online and put their own name as a contact, and we'll send it to them as they request. As long as we can make the connection that either the student or the parent is the individual contacting, we'll be able to help them at least disclose the information.
All right. So they don't have to start getting verified when they begin to apply, but the verification has to be completed prior to the application deadline date.
No. So it is in everyone's best interest to complete the verification process prior to the deadline. However, we do have about 6 to 8 weeks of buffer time while we're processing their scholarship application. The other team is still processing their verification. So what we really want families to understand is it's important in the sense of your chances of getting a scholarship if we can apply preference. So the sooner you can get that process done, the more likely the chance that we can put that little star next to your application that says that you're verified. A lot, I can say in personal experience, a lot of the kids graduating now, they are verified because their parents did it when they were in preschool. The system that we currently utilize is 19 years old. So that time frame of students that were in preschool that applied to Kamehameha preschools or to a Kamehameha schools campus, they were born within the time period that the system was created. So a lot of them are actually already verified. They just don't know, or, as a student, you don't know what your parent did when you were 3 years old. So it is always a good idea to call or email our offices and ask. And if you're not, we'll walk you through the process.
Okay. Are there going to be KS workshops to assist with scholarships?
We like to partner with community groups because we feel like casting the net wider and more hands to help. That is still in the planning phases. I know we're working with Gus to do the AHAs, and you can always contact our offices if you are having an event and would like our assistance or like us to have a table or bring some information. I do believe we have staff going to that awesome Lelehua scholarship college night. So we are out in the community, but definitely you can contact and email the resource centers at the email address listed in the presentation if you'd like to have us come and stop by one of your locations, even on the neighbor islands. So that's important to note. Resource centers are statewide. We have one office on Hawaii. We have an office. We have 3 offices on Oahu. We have an office on Maui, an office on Molokai, and 2 offices on Hawaii Island. So we do have staff deployed statewide that could offer kokua. We do the Kealakahe college night. So definitely we are ready and staged to help in our community.
Awesome. Here's a really great question. Will the help centers be open in the evening hours or even weekends near the application deadlines?
Historically, honestly, we try and nobody comes, and I get really sad because I sit in my office by myself and nobody shows up. It is always up for discussion. We currently have a booking system where you can make an appointment Monday through Friday during regular business hours, but you can definitely ask. We have some staff that are super, super willing to even take up their own time to help our families. I would never say, no, we don't want to help you because it's at 6 p.m. on a Thursday. But we don't usually have hours because we haven't really had a response for them. We do try to do evening workshops, like I said, with our partners. Winter Community College is a great event because they host and they open up their computer lab, and our staff usually is there. I want to say Frank and Gus, maybe like 3 o'clock. And we're there from like 3 to 9, 3 to 8:30, and we'll just, whoever comes, we'll help them out. So definitely inquire with the AHAs and the workshops that are happening within your community. And inquire with us, because you might be calling and saying, you know what, can I come on this night? And we might actually have an event that we're attending at Castle High School or something, and we'll say, yeah, just come down to Castle, we'll be there.
Those are great points. Can you please specify again the deadlines for KS scholarship opportunities?
All right. So for Kamehameha School scholarships, it will open October 1st. Deadline to submit your CSS profile is January 15th. The supplemental documents and steps 2 and 3 must be completed by January 31st. So it's a little bit staggered. Most important is January 15th, though. If you don't make the CSS profile deadline, then step 3 doesn't matter. Award notification is scheduled for May. Hawaii Foundation opens 8 a.m. October 15th. Deadline is 5 p.m. December 15th. Award notifications are in May. Now, first runs of disbursement start in August, and they are rolling based on Kuleana completion by the student. And that could be anywhere between August and October, depending on the situation. Also, make sure students are aware that along with us physically getting the check to them somewhere in August, September, their school needs to also process that check and apply the credit to their account. So we do notice, since our recovery from COVID, there have been a lot of changes in colleges' financial aid offices, and that has caused a delay in sometimes their accounts being updated. And so students really have to be mindful that I can tell them, they can call our offices and we can tell them the check went out, or you can check our portal and the check went out and it's there, but the school might not have processed it yet. So they need to, be aware that they need to also follow up with their schools to make sure that their financial aid office is aware that funds are coming and what the timeline is. These are just little things that happen post awarding that sometimes the kids all get wrapped up in because they're 3,000-4,000 miles away from home, and they're not understanding the process and what goes on. So we like to help them understand what's going on. Another tip I'm going to give, and you guys know this, and I'm going to be telling the parents at the AHAs, is you know your kid better than anyone else. Trash day is on Wednesday at our house in Kaneohe, right, Frank? I've been telling my kids for 20 years. I've been telling my kids for 20 years on Tuesday night to take the trash out. You cannot expect a college senior to check every email and take responsibility for responding timely when they don't even take the trash out on Tuesday night. So we get a lot of families who get really frustrated because their kids got emails to turn in paperwork and they never did, or they forgot to tell their parents, or they forgot a deadline, or they forgot to upload a document or check a box. And parents 3 months later, when they're trying to pay for tuition, are wondering what happened to their scholarship. So it's a hard lesson. And we try to remind families, get a group email that everyone can access. For a lot of students in high school, they lose their school email address. So make a Gmail one that's free, that you all can have access to. But also everyone has to take a little bit of responsibility. It's a kako effort. Everyone has to do their part. It's unfortunate when we see parents contact our offices and say, oh, my son was supposed to, I didn't know that my son didn't do this, or I didn't know that he didn't turn this in. But we know he didn't take the trash out Tuesday night.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Can you clarify for us, for the Pauahi scholarships, what financial documents need to be submitted?
So for now, we are still wanting to understand what's going to happen with the FAFSA. They are going over their processes to see if we can create some more efficiencies. We tried really hard to pivot for the 24-25 school year and continue to accept the FAFSA report as individual families received them. But unfortunately, the clock can't stop because we need to process and make our awards and then move on to the disbursement phase, as Jen had mentioned earlier. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to find something in the interim, or be able to have more confidence that we'll be able to get those FAFSA reports on time. But our staff is in the works of planning what's plan A and what's plan B and what's plan C, and more to come as we get closer to our opening date. And our hope is that we can all have confidence in FAFSA ironing out all its challenges, and we have a good season.
And that's
Right, Frank?
that's
I
what
love that
Godfather.
attitude, Dave. Keep it up. Somebody got to be positive in all this.
Our long-term goal is same as Jen had mentioned. We want everyone to do the FAFSA. That's our first line of financial assistance and funding for college. We want everyone to do the FAFSA. And if we can make it a part of our process to ensure that families do it, we want to be on board. For us specifically, Kamehameha has some processing timelines that take a while. And we know that we can't be telling people if they're awarded in August and October. We need to tell them in May. So, we have to do this workaround until we can iron out all those kinks and have a system that works in a time that works for our families. It's really about our families.
Hey, Dave. We saw on one of your slides that one teacher letter of recommendation is required. Can you clarify if it is one plus optional letters of recommendation?
Yes, that is correct. So 1 plus optional, depending on the number of scholarships that you select and the number required per individual scholarship, you may be required to do more than one. And that's why we're starting to, really kind of put the feelers out there that students should do a curriculum vitae. They should be doing their own academic resume so they can walk out of high school with something that will help them, and set them on a path where they have access and information already there, ready to go.
Is there any possibility in the future years of these award notifications being released earlier? Since kids need to make a decision, families need to make a decision on colleges.
Absolutely. We'd love to be able to do that, but that means we'd have to start our process that much earlier. And that means, eventually, if we want to be using the FAFSA report, that means FAFSA is going to have to open earlier. We're all partners in this.
We're all partners. That's absolutely right. And yeah, that last question is for the UH Common Scholarship. So yeah, that's all for you, Dave. Thank you so much. Back to you, Godfather.
We'll see you at Anaha.
We'll see you soon, Dave. Thank you. Excellent, excellent information as always, everybody. All right, before we launch into the financial aid side of this, I am going to call a break. It's time to refill your coffee cups, grab some more sugar. You're going to need all the energy you've got. No, it's not that bad coming up, but we've got a long stretch with just the FAFSA and general financial aid information. So according to my watch clock, whatever, it's 10:30 right now. Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll come back and start right back in at 10:40. So again, go fill up, get your caffeine, get your sugar. It'll help you get through what's coming next. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you got enough caffeine and sugar to get you through the next hour or so. I've been neglected. A few people have asked me about this photograph here, where it is, what it is. Just so everybody knows, this is taken from the top of the South Tower of Notre Dame in Paris before the fire. So this was back many, many years ago. And there's a little walk around, and this is one of the guests, or one of the residents, I should say, of the top of the South Tower. And in the very, very back here, this is Sacré-Cœur up here in the very, very back area. All right, moving on. Just some updates on numbers and dollar amounts. Our maximum current Pell Grant is $7,395. This was level funding from 23-24. So we didn't have an increase. We didn't have a reduction. We went straight across the board at $73.95, which is Congress's way of saying, well, we couldn't agree on anything, so we'll just keep it the way it is. We do not yet have 25-26 funding levels. Again, this is congressional appropriations that has to happen. And to be honest, Congress isn't doing much of anything right now, so we're not sure what it will be. It is an election year, which means I sincerely doubt that it's going to go down. On the other hand, we are completely broke, so I'm not hopeful that it's going to go up by much anyway. Our minimum award does still remain at 740. Minimum awards from last year actually moving forward are based on 10% of the maximum Pell Grant, rounded up to the nearest $5. So 73.95, 10% would be 739.50. We round that up to 740. The shortcuts, FAFSA.gov and FSAID.ed.gov, which take you directly, one to the FAFSA application and the other to the FSAID application. Those were supposed to have been dead 2 years ago. They're not. They're really trying to focus or funnel everything through studentaid.gov. However, they've had some other issues to deal with. Not. Which means they're just not paying any attention to these things whatsoever. They're not getting the work they needed. The shortcut links are still available. Eventually they're going to disappear, but right now they're up and running. They all work. This is where the feds want everybody going. Everything is being funneled through this landing page here. This is studentaid.gov. And when I say everything, obviously the FAFSA is here, the FSAID is here, but all the student loan information is here. If you've not spent any time cruising through this, it's pretty good. They've got a lot of really good answers to questions on this site. So when you get questions that come up, if you can't reach DJ or myself, by all means, check out studentaid.gov. Lots of good answers, lots of good information on the site. I bring this up just to, it's dead. It's been dead for a couple of years now. We no longer have a mobile app. That does not mean that students cannot do the FAFSA on their cell phones. What they did is they optimized the entire program to work on cell phones. So rather than having to download and use a specific app to do it, the student would just go to studentaid.gov and they'll be able to do exactly what they would do on a laptop or a desktop computer on their cell phone. I'm not a big fan of this, and I'm not a big fan for a couple of reasons. One, I'm old. Two, I have fat fingers, and I'm not going to get through it. But I'll tell you, I have seen students whip through this like lightning. I mean, there's just no issue whatsoever. Boom, 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 and they got it done. If that's what they're comfortable with, that's fine. The one issue that we have, or that keeps coming up for us, is it's very difficult to help a student when they're doing this on their phone. So we will ask if a student needs us to look at something or we need to do this together, we will ask the student to get onto a tablet, a laptop, a desktop, some sort of computer rather than their cell phone. Otherwise, I can't do anything to help them on the cell phone. But if they don't need our help, they can whip right through it and get it done on their cell phone. Interest rates, real quick, just because we always give them. A reminder that the rates are going to be same for undergraduate loans, whether it's subsidized or unsubsidized. There's no difference in the interest rate. There is a difference in the undergraduate as opposed to graduate students. So for students who are applying for graduate unsubsidized or grad plus loans, they will have a different interest rates. It is a fixed rate. It will not change for the life of the loan, but next year you'll have a new rate. So a student who goes through 4 years and does have student loans will end up with 4 loans, each one at a different interest rate. And thank goodness they got computers, because otherwise you'd never figure out what the repayment's going to be on that process. But they've got that down pretty well, and those programs seem to work. Currently, these are our new interest rates starting on July 1st, 2024. The undergraduate sub and unsub loans are running 6.53. Not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it's still not bad. For grad or professional students, the unsubsidized has a percentage rate a little higher, 8.08%. Again, these are not the best interest rates I've seen, but they're still not bad. This one is beginning to scare me a little bit. This is the interest rate for the PLUS loan, the parental loan for undergraduate students. It has now hit 9.08%. Those of you who know me know that I'm not a very big fan of private loans. I never have been. I tend to chase students and parents away from them. However, we're looking at interest rates depending on individuals, depending on credit scores. You may be finding private student loans that are or that offer a better interest rate than the PLUS loan does. Maybe, maybe not, but it's going to happen here eventually. You still would lose out on some of the benefits that are there for the PLUS loans. And I mean, if the pandemic has taught us nothing else, is that we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And for example, during this pandemic, student loan payments were suspended, which means nobody had to pay for their student loans for a while. There was no interest being added on to those loans. So it was basically just a reprieve, take a break kind of thing that applied only to federal student loans. It did not apply to the private student loans. Those payments were still required and interest was still adding on to them. So there are some things that you miss out on by going private as opposed to federal, but depending on what the interest rate, there may be an argument to do it. So FAFSA simplification, and this is how it was presented to us going back a year. It's going to make life beautiful. It's a rebirth. Everything is going to be nice. And the reality of it was it didn't work very well at all. I didn't include it on a slide because I'm sick of seeing it, but you remember that 2 years ago we had the Better FAFSA, Better Future logo. It was part of their branding when they announced FAFSA simplification. I am happy to say they've discontinued that. They don't even have the guts to promote that anymore. So we're just looking at a new and improved FAFSA. If there is anything in this process, after having survived the last year of being lied to and nothing working, the one silver lining is this. The guy who was in charge of all of this in the past couple of years anyway, has left. He's no longer with the department. And he left, quote unquote, to pursue other interests and spend more time with his family. They fired his ass. It's basically what happened because it was a disaster. Now, there probably are another 50 people that should be canned, and they're not going to be, but they didn't do us any justice. They have hired Jeremy Singer to come in and oversee this. Now, this is a temporary position. Jerry Singer, if you're not familiar with him, he's the president of College Board. Yeah, that's the same College Board that does the CSS profile that works without any problems and nobody has issues and everything is cool. They hired that guy to come in and oversee the redoing, the release, the fixing, whatever of the new FAFSA. So far, so good. I'm not 100% pleased with everything that's happening, but I got to tell you, I kind of like what I'm seeing from this guy. Now, whether or not he's going to be able to fix everything that we need fixed, time is going to tell. But at least it's not the same old people that screwed us up last year. So he's now running the whole show and getting things done. We still have our kind of comical parent thing. We have problems deciding what we're going to call it. Again, we started a while back with mom and dad, and then we said, nah, we're not going to do the mom and dad thing. We're going to go to parent 1 and parent 2. And then last year we said, well, let's get rid of the numbers and we're just going to go with parent and other parent. And so far, that's what we're sticking with. So when you see the 25-26 FAFSA, it is going to reference the parent and the other parent. Now, just so you know, I don't care which is which. Either of the parents can be called parent, and then the other one is the other parent. It doesn't matter who the first person on the tax form is. It doesn't matter. I mean, none of that matters. It's totally up to the student and the parents as to which one is going to be parent and which one is going to be other parent. No problem at all. So our 25-26, this is the first year that I'm not going to show you a picture of it, and I can't tell you what color it is because we ain't seen it yet. They have not released the draft of the 25-26 FAFSA. It's somewhere. It's got to be there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing the slides that are coming out for 25-26. I've actually done a 25-26 FAFSA. It is hidden, but it's out there for financial aid people to mess around with. And if you can hack into it, you can actually steal screenshots that we'll share with you today. But the actual paper FAFSA has not been released in draft form or any form whatsoever. Our normal color rotation would have this year being yellow, and parents would remain purple. We're not going to change them. Now, this applies only to the paper FAFSA, obviously, but haven't seen one yet. It's a secret. That worries me a little bit. Ways to file the 25-26 FAFSA. This is not really new, but just kind of a reminder. The bestest way to do this is everybody doing it online. And by everybody, I mean the student starts the FAFSA, and then their contributors, be it one parent or both parents, they log on and do their portion online of the FAFSA. Fastest, easiest, simplest way to get this thing done, doing it online. You can do a PDF or a paper version of the FAFSA. So it's there available to download. It's not there yet, but it will be. And you can download the PDF, fill it out by hand, provide a wet signature, and mail the puppy in. Boy, it has to be an extreme case before I'm going to recommend anybody doing that. As we went through the heartbreak and headaches of last year and everything that didn't work, one of our last ditch options was, well, you're not going to get it online, go do the paper version of the FAFSA. And we were told repeatedly that that's okay. Students can do the paper version, provide the wet signatures and approval. We would be processing, meaning the department would begin processing paper applications in June. So it's going to be long after, or a couple months anyway, after they started processing the online FAFSAs. But June was going to be okay, and okay in that we would still have a completed FAFSA with an SAI by the time the students started school in, say, August, September. They lied, which is not anything new whatsoever. We've grown accustomed to us. They flat out lied to us. It was not processed in June. In fact, they did not start processing paper FAFSAs until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They had done a sum, and then they found errors and things weren't working, and then they stopped. So students who filed paper FAFSAs, many of them are still waiting for their response. It was an absolute disaster. Hopefully that's not going to be the case as we move forward to 25-26. It is still an option for filing the FAFSA. An applicant, meaning the student, can actually log on with an FSA ID and do their FAFSA online, and then provide parental information, but not provide the parent's signature. Now, for those of you who've been around a while, you remember we used to have what was called a signature page, which is an alternative if the parent couldn't get an FSA ID and couldn't sign or log on electronically. They could go ahead and print out the signature page, provide a wet signature, mail it into the department, and it would get processed. That's gone. We no longer have a signature page. So if the student does complete the application online and are unable to provide parental consent and signature electronically, they can wait until they get the FAFSA submission summary, the FSS, which is, again, the recap of a submitted FAFSA, and then the parent can provide a wet signature on that document, return that via the mail to the department, and we've got it covered. Boy, I sure don't recommend that. That's going to take a lot of time. Now, I think one of the things that'll happen this year is we won't see processing delays. He says that with all the confidence of a wet penguin. That was part of the problem last year. The FAFSA opened in January or on December 31st, but nobody processed it. It didn't work because the system wasn't running right. And so you got it in, but nobody got any results until March. And then even when March came around to make corrections, you still had to wait another month. So we were into May and June before students were actually getting completed FAFSAs in. Sitting around waiting for a processed payment voucher, if things are going fine, like it is today, where things are right on schedule, students going to have a processed or a FAFSA submission summary in like 3 days. It doesn't take a long time if things are up and running. Are things going to be up and running? Are they going to be working smoothly by the time FAFSA opens on December 1st? I don't know. One of the reasons that we got a delay in the opening of the FAFSA was that the financial aid community went back to the department and said, look, we would rather you delay the opening, but open it 100%, meaning make sure everything works, make sure it gets processed, make sure we can do corrections. And then the other side, make sure institutions, schools are receiving a timely copy of that FAFSA. So if you need to delay it to get all that parts working, do it. They said, okay, that's what we'll do. So we're promising you that we're going to give you a fully functional FAFSA by December 1st. They lie. They've just spent a whole year lying to us. So, I mean, fingers crossed, we can believe it. We hope it's going to happen, but we may be talking later on. Yeah, some of us have got a really sour attitude after the last year. So major changes to 25-26. The good news is nothing. There's no major changes to the FAFSA form whatsoever. There's no way they could have made any changes to the FAFSA form. They can't get it working. They spent all their effort, time, money, personnel, man hours, everything is being spent on getting the FAFSA functional and working for the entire system. So they didn't change anything except a couple minor little things. And I had to look really hard to find some changes to it, and I'll show you that. Now, they will be changing some of the text language for instructions and the help sections as well. Haven't seen that. They're still working on that, but they're trying to clarify that and make that a little bit clearer. So when we get into it, the FAFSA is going to look the same. It's going to feel the same. It's going to work the same. It's not going to be any different than what we went through for 24-25. The federal tax information, you're aware of this, it automatically is now transferred over. Now, unlike the data retrieval that we had 2 years ago, where the student had to kind of opt into that process, enter the bunch of information, and then they had to get their taxes and manually move it over into their FAFSA. This is automatic. Nobody opts in, nobody does anything. It just, once you click on the approval at the beginning of the FAFSA, it automatically moves the tax information over. And I gotta tell you, it works. I was so impressed with this, having gone through the IRS data retrieval where nothing worked and half the time you couldn't get it. This works every single time, except when there's other issues involved. And it's not the transfer that's having an issue. It's things like their taxes have been frozen for identity theft or something like that. Or they didn't file taxes, or they filed something different than what they're telling me. But it's smooth. The information moves over. I've been asked several times about who can see this tax information. So this is both for the student as well as the parent. The tax information is moved and automatically goes into the FAFSA. It is hidden. It's a secret. The only people who can see that information is me being the financial aid office. It is only the financial aid office that has access to view that tax information. Parent, you can't even see it if you log back on. The student will not see it. If anybody should happen to hack into your FAFSA, they can't see it. Again, it's only the financial aid office that has access to view the transferred tax information. EFC died last year. We no longer had any EFC. We gave it a funeral. We buried it 6 feet deep. See you later. And we resurrected it with something called an SAI, Student Aid Index. And they did that just for naming purposes. Expected family contribution was a little bit of a misnomer. It did not have anything to do with what the family had to contribute. And they changed it to SAI. Come on, same. It's the same thing. It's just we call it an SAI now. The consent part was this. This is something we had new last year, but it is required that the student provide consent and the parent provide consent. And it's right up front after you log in. It'll be one of the first couple pages you come across. And the consent is that you're consenting to FAFSA to contact IRS, get your tax information, and move it automatically into the FAFSA. Now, in the case of students or parents, for that matter, who did not file taxes for 2023, you still must provide the consent. What will happen is FAFSA will contact IRS. IRS will respond, no tax was on file, and fine, we move forward. And you can moan and groan and grumble about this all you want, and you can talk about overreach of government and blah and all that stuff. And too bad. You don't have a choice. It's not optional. There's no way around this. There's no way out of it. You must provide the consent, or the student is not going to be eligible for financial aid. I mean, to the extent where they actually don't even calculate an SAI, and the student is automatically ineligible for all aid. So you don't have a choice. You must provide the consent. Oh boy, this demographic survey is still going to be on the FAFSA. I saw it again. This is the part where they're asking the student questions like gender, race, things like that. It is an absolute waste of time. I apologize to our students and families for this. It serves no purpose whatsoever. It's not part of the formula. The schools will not receive this information. It's not part of our game. Department of Ed doesn't even receive this information. It gets dumped somewhere in the basement halls of Congress, and God only knows what they're doing with the information. It is nothing but a waste of a student's time, and shame on them for continuing this. Now, the student can opt out of this, and they can opt out by selecting the box that says, I prefer not to answer, but they have to do that 4 times. They can't just skip it. They have to actually select prefer not to answer. You can actually answer it if you choose. There's no problem with that. And as far as I'm concerned, you can make up the information because, again, I don't see it. Not part of your eligibility. It's not part of the formula at all.
Hey, Godfather,
Yes, sir. Talk to me.
can you please repeat how the financial aid office only has access to the tax information?
When a student files the FAFSA, it gets processed. The student then receives the results or a copy of it called a FAFSA submission summary, and the school receives a copy. And it's our institutional record that we get, and it's what we use to determine the student's aid eligibility and everything else. On our copy of the process or of the results, we do see the tax information. So I know adjusted gross income, amount of tax paid, and the other tax type issues are part of our calculation. So that information comes through to us, but it does not come through to the student.
Okay, thank you.
Last year, we changed the parent of record. This is in the case of divorce or separation. Remember, for years and years and years and years, it was always where did the student live most of the time. That's no longer relative. And you will hear me say frequently, I don't care, not important. Don't tell me where they live. It's not part of the determination. Same thing with who claimed them on their taxes. Don't care, not part of the determination. It is simply which parent provided the greater amount of support in the previous 12 months. Okay, one more time. Who provided the greater amount of support in the previous 12 months? That's the parent we're going to use. So again, this is for cases of divorce and separation. No, I'm not going to find support for you. The feds didn't define it for me, so I'm not about to start defining it for our students. It's up to the student and parent to make this decision, and then I will believe you. Unless I am given conflicting information and something tells me that what you're telling me is not right, I'm not checking it. I'm not looking twice at it. I'm not even batting my eyes. We believe what you tell us. If you say mom is the parent that provides the greater amount of support, then give me mom's information, and I'm not going to question you. It's not my place. So again, unless I receive conflicting information that says something else, I'm not going to pursue this at all. It's totally up to the student and the parent. If once you've done this calculation or determination and you figured out which parent you're going to be reporting, If that parent has remarried, then you're going to give me the step parents' information as well. I know this is where people start screaming and yelling at me, and yeah, they have a prenuptial agreement that says I don't provide for your kids, you don't provide for my, all kinds of situations out there. And to be honest, FAFSA don't care. FAFSA wants household income, which means step parent information must be included. FSA ID requirement for anybody who is providing tax information, including the student, they must have an FSA ID. The FSA ID, if you're not familiar, is the electronic signature for all things federal financial aid. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute.
Hey,
All the
Godfather,
tax, yeah, what you got?
a couple questions just came in. I think they were related to the last slide. So,
Okay,
are there any additional comments for COFA folks?
no,
No.
I'm
Okay.
trying to think and go through. No, there's nothing additional in there.
Okay. And then how does child support play into the determine which parent provides more support? Don't they declare child support? And this is about determining which parent to use in the
Yeah,
case of a
okay.
separation.
Child support will be reported on the FAFSA. So when you get to the parental asset questions up at the very top, it asks for child support received, and it will be on there. As far as determining which parent provides the greater support, the parent who is paying the child support counts that as part of their support for the child. So just if the student is living with mom and dad's paying child support, when we look at which parent provided the greater support, that child support that is being paid is dad's support. So we would add that into what he provides as far as support to determine which parent.
Okay. Quickly, one more other question.
Yep.
If parents are divorced and one parent submits financial information, who signs off on the plus loan? Just the one parent or both?
Just the one parent who provided information on the FAFSA.
Awesome. Thank you. Back to you.
All righty, moving on. Again, virtually no taxable questions on the FAFSA form. And I do want to mention this. If you are going through this and you get to the parent section, because the students generally have not yet filed the taxes, but you get to the parent section and you start seeing questions like, what's your adjusted gross income? What's the amount of tax paid? How much did you earn from work? Something's wrong. You're not supposed to see those questions. Or the only time you're going to see those questions is if we can't get your tax information. So, for example, if you haven't provided consent, if your FSA ID has not been activated or verified via Social Security database match, if there's a problem, if IRS is refusing to release your tax information, then you will see those questions and it will be a manual entry of all those numbers. But otherwise, you're not supposed to see those questions. And I would probably tell you to stop and get in touch with myself or DJ or a financial aid office at your school and ask them how come, what's wrong. And there could very well be an explanation for it. But if it's things like you haven't given your FSA ID has not been activated because you just did it yesterday, that's very simple. Just wait until that FSA ID is activated, the 3 to 5 days, and then that should go away and you shouldn't have to see that. But question it if you're seeing that things. Fewer untaxed income items are now in the federal methodology formula. We're not asking a lot about cash received and housing benefits for clergy and military. All that stuff is gone and we don't have to deal with it anymore. It's not part of the formula. It's not even part of the actual application. Family size, we used to call that household size, but now it's called family. It still is household size. This is based on your tax form. So we start off and you don't really answer that question. It will automatically look at your tax form. And, if there's 2 parents and they have 2 kids that they claimed as exemption, we're going to call your family size 4. And that's how we're going to move forward. But before I move forward, I'm going to ask you, is that the right number? And I'll show you what you do if it's not the right number in just a minute here. FAFSA contributors, these are people providing information to the FAFSA, obviously the student, the parent and other parent, and for independent students, if there's a spouse, then we're going to have the spouse is information. These are all contributors. Let me hold off. I get back to the FSA ID, who needs it. This is cute, this little chart from the government of the steps to contribute it. Starting off with the first one, which says the contributor receives an email, because as the student does the FAFSA, they put the spouse or they put the parent's information and then click send invite. And that's supposed to generate an email to the parent or the spouse that says, your student is doing a FAFSA. They need your help to complete their FAFSA. Please provide your information. That email is about 50-50. Half the time you're going to see it, half the time it ain't going to get there. It really frustrates parents because they're being told, look for an email, check your email, check your email. And we get calls almost daily. I didn't get the email. I don't see the email. I've been waiting a week and I didn't get the email. We don't care. The email's not important. Don't worry about it. Move on with life. Just go to studentaid.gov and log on. Again, it's 50-50. For some reason, the feds doesn't work very well. Parent, if you are providing information, if you are a contributor, you need to make sure that you have an FSA ID, and you need to make sure that you create that FSA ID before you try providing information on the FAFSA. The FSA ID, or part of the process of the FSA ID, is that it goes through a verification with the Social Security database. And the verification is simply, are you who you say you are? So I'm going to take your Social Security number, your name, and your date of birth. We're going to check with Social Security. And if it all matches, you're good to go. And your FSA ID is now activated. Until it gets matched, it is not activated. You cannot use it. Do not enter information on the FAFSA. You need to wait. So don't do your FSA ID the night you're going to sit down at a FAFSA completion event and do your student's FAFSA. Because if you create the FSA ID that night, then we will say aloha, goodbye, go home, and log back on in 3 to 5 days, and you can now complete your FAFSA. So make sure you do it ahead of time. This is something you can do now. So if you haven't already created it, do it now. Student starts the FAFSA. Student does their stuff first. Once the student is complete, the student will then log out of their FAFSA. Important, log out. I can't have two of you signed into the same FAFSA at the same time. You're asking for trouble. Once the student logs out, parent, you will now log in and provide your information and move forward from there. But make sure they are both, or only one of you is logged on to this FAFSA at the same time. These are the demographic pages I had mentioned. And again, at the bottom, you can see prefer not to answer to these. They are dumb, stupid, waste of time. They have nothing to do with the student's eligibility. I've been telling all my kids, check off that you're from Cuba. Let them figure that one out back in Washington. We did add the net value of the family farm and small business. This has caused us some grief this year, is trying to determine the value of these. I think the easiest thing for me to say that is, if you do own a business and you think it has value that you need to report on the FAFSA, before you report it, you should check with either myself or DJ Gus or the financial aid office. There can be some special circumstances involved in this that we want to work with you and to make sure we're getting the right answer and that you're not over reporting. It is net worth, which means if there is any debt against either the farm or the business, we're going to subtract that first and then report the value. But again, check with us before your parents go through. Assets, we didn't have a lot of changes in assets. It still is cash in the bank on a bad day. Don't give me the cash in the bank on payday. We know that number goes up and down. It's a bank account. Child support received is now, and I totally realize that child support is not an asset, but as they started shortening this FAFSA and cutting out pages and cutting out questions, they ran out of room for child support, so they just stuck it at the top of the asset page. It is the amount received in the last calendar year. So if you are doing your FAFSA this year in December, it would be the amount received in 2023. If you're waited till January and you're doing your FAFSA, then it would be the amount received in 2024. So again, the last completed calendar year. 529 educational savings plan for this student only. We no longer report any other kids 529. So for this FAFSA applicants, 529 only reported as a parent asset.
Hey, Godfather,
Yeah, what you got?
could you clarify for us how we calculate the number of household members? For example, we have lots of families living and supporting with their extended family living with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I rushed through that, didn't I? If you have anybody else living under your roof as part of your family, and you are providing at least 50% of their support, then you would count them or include them in your household size or number in household. Again, that key there is providing 50% of the support. Still not going to define support for you. It's up to you. You tell me. But I mean, it just kind of common sense says if you're paying the rent or paying the mortgage, you're putting the food in the refrigerator, you're paying Hawaiian Electric, you're paying the Board of Water. All of these expenses are part of the support for anybody living under your roof. I would say you're going to include them. And it is very common. I mean, how many families do we know that have grandma and grandpa living at home under the same roof? Grandma and grandpa are probably receiving Social Security, which means they're filing their own taxes. So you're not claiming them. But again, I would argue that you're probably providing at least 50% of the support. You need to include them in that number. The Hanai children that wandered in off the street into your house 2 years ago, you don't know where they came from. You don't know who they belong to, but they're eating your food, using your hot water. I mean, they are part of your household and you are, in fact, supporting them. You cannot claim them on your taxes because they're not yours, but they should be included in your household size. So that's going to be a point where you say, no, I don't like the number I'm getting from the taxes. And I'll show you the screen in just a minute here. Then we're going to allow you, or you're going to get the option to add in whatever people are missing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good question. So 529 again is reported as a parental asset. UGMAs and UTMAs are reported as a student asset. And if you don't know what those are, then you don't need to worry about it. You don't have to deal with them. Asset routine, simplified needs and auto zero calculations were gone. Those don't exist. However, there are several circumstances where assets will not be either required or used in the formula. Anybody eligible for maximum Pell, for example, if a parent was not required and did not file taxes, they're max Pell eligible. Their assets are irrelevant. We're not going to look at them at all. You're familiar with the federally means tested questions. Anybody in the household in the previous 2 years received benefits from the following programs, and this would be SNAP or food stamps, Medicaid, free or reduced lunch, Section 8 housing, things like that. Those are the federally means tested programs. If you did, we're not going to look at your assets. Anybody making less than 60,000 in adjusted gross income and has no lettered tax schedule. So no Schedule I, no Schedule J, no Schedule, I don't know what the other ones are. But if you got none of them, then you will be, or we won't look at your assets. If, on the other hand, you have a Schedule C, but Schedule C is being used to report capital gains, and the gains are less than $10,000, you will still be eligible to ignore the assets. Now, you will probably be asked to complete the assets. It will just not be used in the formula once we make that determination. Always including this, and we talked, who's considered a legal parent, biological, adoptive, and step parents are reported. As much as we love grandparents, they are not reported. Foster parents, legal guardians, and for that matter, a widowed step parent. So a step parent who had married the student's biological parent, but the biological parent has since passed, that step parent, unless they adopted the student, would no longer provide their information because they are not considered the student's parents. And if they did adopt the student is now an adoptive, and we don't ever include adoptive parents' information at all. So that would be the other case where it doesn't go. So the students that have been living with auntie or grandma or grandpa their whole life, they're not generally considered parents unless there's been an adoption involved in the game. And this may bring us to doing what's called a dependency override. Which parent, we talked about this, it is the parent who provided the greater support. No, I will not define support for you as much as you badger me. It's up to you. You tell me, and I will believe you because I am a trusting person and I believe what my students tell me. In reporting parental information, dependent students who have married parents that are living with them, they're all together, you're going to provide information about both parents. Divorced or separated parents, you're going to provide information about that one parent who provides the greater support, and a step parent if that parent has been remarried. If you are unable to provide parent information, now unable, not unwilling, unable to provide parent information, the student, there is a section on the FAFSA that will deal with that. It'll allow the student to continue the application and provide them with a provisional SAI. So they get to complete the FAFSA. However, it is still considered incorrect and rejected until the student talks to the school. They got to come and see me. I'm the one that's got to sign off on this. If I don't sign off on it, you ain't going to get any aid because your application is not valid at that point. So you can get through the process and finish it, but you're still going to have to contact the school and do whatever the school says you need to do. Family size, again, will come from the tax return, but you can adjust it if necessary. Pell Grant has become just the absolute point of confusion in all of this new stuff. We no longer calculate Pell the way you're used to it. It gets done totally different now. The hierarchy is first looking if a student is eligible for the maximum Pell Grant. So the first thing I look at is the student eligible for max Pell? They are if they are non-tax filers. Now, non-tax filers means not required to file taxes. Somebody who's hiding from the IRS and owes them a bunch of money and doesn't want to file their tax return because they owe them a bunch of money is not going to be considered a non-filer. Non-filer is somebody that is not required and then did not file taxes. We have a poverty guideline routine here. The next step is we look, and I'll show you the numbers here, but we look at their adjusted gross income and it gets compared to the poverty level. And if it's within, depends on whether it's a single or not single parent, but 225%, then you're still eligible for the max Pell. Max Pell means I'm not going to look at your disbursements at all. You are just eligible for the max Pell. If you're not eligible for max Pell, then we go to what's called a calculated Pell. This is the old way where we would take the SAI, we would subtract that from the maximum Pell. So we take the maximum Pell minus the SAI, and the result is what the student is going to be eligible. We don't have a table anymore. We don't have a chart where you would look up the EFC at the top and the cost of attendance and then calculate what. Now, we just take the maximum Pell Grant minus whatever SAI is calculated, and that is the student's eligibility. If that results in no Pell, meaning that their SAI is higher than the maximum Pell, then we will look to see if the student qualifies for minimum Pell. And again, this goes back into the poverty charts, and we up the percentage to like 300% of an adjusted gross income. The student may still be eligible for maximum Pell. This caused all kinds of confusion this year, and the comments we heard were things like, this parent has $1 million in assets and they're getting a full Pell Grant, maximum Pell Grant. How come? Well, because their adjusted gross income, either they didn't file taxes or their adjusted gross income as reported to the IRS was so low that they qualified for max Pell, which means I don't look at assets anymore. And then we get to the other end where the student's income was high enough, they had assets, the parents' income, and they're still getting a $700 Pell Grant. Again, we're back into using those percentages and looking at 300% of the poverty level. And if their income falls below that number, then they're going to get the minimum Pell. And then at that point, we're not going to look at assets. So weird stuff happened and is continuing to happen with this every single year. So this
Hey,
is just,
Godfather,
yeah, what you got?
sorry, before you get into dependent students, we have a couple questions about how do we help students who might be an independent student? So the first question is, what about a student who does not know where their biological parents are and have no contact information and have never seen them before?
There is a section on the FAFSA that they will check that off. It will allow them to complete the FAFSA, and then that student will need to contact the financial aid office and go through their process. What we're dealing with here is what's called a dependency override. This is basically where the financial aid office confirms and says it's unrealistic to expect the student to provide parental information because they ain't around, never been around, don't know where they are. I'm not sending the student chasing to Mexico to try and find missing parents. We have the authority, based on your information, we have the authority then to declare that student independent. I do not take grandma's information. I don't take auntie's information. I don't take foster parents' information. It's all or nothing. So if I can't get biological, then I declare them independent and I don't use any parental information. Now, it's important to note here, while you can say so on the FAFSA and complete the FAFSA, you're not going to get it until you talk to the school. We have, every school does. We all have a procedure for dealing with this. And you can probably look it up on our website. I know for the UH schools, they're very good about showing you what information we need and what forms you need to fill out. But there will be a form that you need to fill out. There will be, you have to put it in writing. I need a written explanation. You're going to have to provide verification. I need a counselor. I need a clergy member, police officer, an attorney. I need somebody who's honest and doesn't lie. Okay, they don't know the same cops I know, but you get the idea. There's got to be third-party verification that you are, in fact, not living with your parents and your parents are nowhere around, or somebody has to know that. If you are dealing with McKinney-Vento situations, I mean, that is going to help. But you need to convince me of your situation. Once you do, I sign it. You are now an independent student and we can move on with life. And it's good. But it's got to come from the school. So a couple things. One, you better narrow down which schools you're going to, because just because I approve a dependency override has nothing to do with another school. You'd have to go to them and do the same thing and follow their procedure and get a dependency override from them. We do it every single day, but it's a little extra work on the student's part.
A follow-up question is a little bit different, but the same basic premise. Student turns 18, there's no parents. Guardianship ends at the senior's birth date. Does the student file independently? Has no income, but may have been left estate money upon parent's death?
No. After digesting all that, no. Just because you're 18, just because you're out of a guardianship does not make you independent. And again, FAFSA is a little detached from the real world. The chances are you are independent. You're making your way on your own in life and supporting yourself. I mean, more power to you. FAFSA don't care. FAFSA just says no. However, the way the guardianship question reads is, are you currently in a legal guardianship or were you until your 18th birthday? So if you've aged out, and this applies for foster care as well, if you've turned 18 and your guardianship is POW, you were in a guardianship, you will check yes to the box where it says, are you or were you in a legal guardianship? And that will make you independent. So it's not just you, it's answering that question that will make you independent. And then I don't require any parental information.
Awesome. Back to you.
All right, moving along. These are the Max Pell formulas. This was for dependent students, where if it's a single parent, we're going to look up to 225% of the poverty level. If that parent's income is below that, the student is still going to be considered Max Pell eligible. Parents that are not single, I mean married parents, it's going to be 175% of the poverty guideline. I'm going to show you those numbers in just a second here because it's a pretty impressive array, or the income can be relatively high and still get Max Pell. This is my second calculation that I do if the student's not eligible for the max Pell. This is take the max Pell minus the SAI equals their Pell Grant. So in this example, they're using 7850 as a max Pell, not a real number, made up just for example, show and tell purposes only. SAI of 1002, take 7850 minus 1002, you get 6848. We round everything up to the nearest $5. So this becomes 6,850 would be this student's Pell Grant. So again, SAI max Pell minus SAI would give us their eligibility. And if that don't work, if we still got zero Pell, we're going to our minimum Pell. And the minimum Pell is the same kind of thing that we did for the max Pell, where we're comparing the poverty charts to adjusted gross income, except we've increased the percentages. So for a single parent, it's up to 325% of the poverty, meaning if their adjusted gross income is less than the 325% of the poverty level, they're back eligible for minimum Pell. Remember, minimum Pell is 10% of the max Pell. That is currently $740. Now, once we did all of that, so we've got some sort of number, some sort of eligibility for the student, or if they're not eligible, we're not doing anything else. We're done with that. But once we've got that, now we got to take a look. Is the student going to be attending full-time, part-time, half-time, three-quarter time? And to be honest, we no longer care what status there is. So as far as Pell eligibility, full-time, half-time, three-quarter time is irrelevant. We don't use the terms anymore. We're using now what's called enrollment intensity. They love making this stuff up. It's just a percent of full-time enrollment. Full-time enrollment is considered 12 credits. If a student is taking 12 or more, their enrollment intensity is 100%. They get 100% of whatever I awarded. If the student is taking 7 credits, we used to call that half-time. We no longer care. It's 58% of 12 of the full-time credits. The student would then be awarded 58% of what they're eligible for. So it is still going to be adjusted by their course load, but this time it's by percent as opposed to different categories. Just a repeat of everything. We start with max Pell, then we go to calculated Pell, and then we go to minimum Pell. These are the charts, and these are so small it's hard to see. But if for a single parent here in determining max Pell, if they've got 2 children, so 3 would be the household size, single parent, 2 children, and if they're the poverty guideline, this is 22 poverty guideline, and it is for Hawaii. We have our own chart. So be careful because ours is higher than any place else. The poverty guideline is 26,490. So in looking to see if this student is going to be eligible for max Pell, we use 225% of the poverty guideline. Now this student can make up to 59,000 and still be eligible for maximum Pell. And if they've got more children, that number grows higher. For minimum Pell, that number is 86,000. So this is where we see a lot of students that we are not expecting, especially in the minimum Pell, because that's a significant increase in income. You've seen them. We have negative SAIs. It'll go as much as negative 1,500. Don't get excited over it. It doesn't mean anything to anybody anyway right now. We still convert that to 0 when we do the calculations for all other financial aid programs. You don't get more Pell Grant. You don't get more loan. You don't get more nothing. The feds are up to something somewhere down the pike. They're going to start using this, but they're not telling us. They're saying, oh, schools can use it to better determine usage of their funds. Well, whatever. But again, it just reverts back to 0 for all of our aid eligibility and aid calculations. So again, no extra money with a minus 1,500 SAI. These were the untaxed benefits, income and benefits that I mentioned were removed. Payments to tax-deferred pension plans, workman's comp, housing and food allowance, all of this stuff is gone. It's not coming back. You don't need to worry about it. This is a nice little chart that shows you, this is actually legible and easy to follow. shows you who needs an FSA ID. So if the parents are married and they're living together with the child and they filed a joint tax return for 2023, only one parent needs an FSA ID. If they filed separate taxes for whatever reason, then both parents will need to have an FSA ID. It's a good little walkthrough of the different types of scenarios that are in there. FSA ID can only maybe used only once a year. What? Oh, parents especially, make them write it down, make them put it in their phone, have the student write it down. I can't tell you how much time we spend with parents. Well, I had an FSA ID, I made an account, but I don't remember it. All right, well, let's go retrieve it. Use the cell phone that you. No, I don't have the same cell phone. That ain't going to work. Well, use your email that you used to create. I don't have access to that email anymore. They talk about making it complicated. Now, we will do whatever we can to help them through this, but understand you cannot delete an old FSA ID. You cannot ignore it. You cannot create a new one. You have to deal with the one you created. And unfortunately, after we've tried everything we can, the answer is you got to call. And my call is you got to call the 800 number to the federal helpline back in Washington. And that is the most miserable thing that I could do to any parent or student. And if you've had to make that phone call or you have had parents to make that phone call, except for Dana Kaneshiro. Dana Kaneshiro at Roosevelt goes through this, calls them, they answer right away, they give her the right information, and she's off of that phone in 5 minutes. I don't understand that. She knows people we don't know. The girl got connections. Normally, it'll take you 3 hours to get connected. You'll get a dummy on the other end of the line, and they will disconnect you. All right, I'm over generalizing. Obviously, I'm embellishing, but it can be a very frustrating experience, and I will do everything I can to avoid passing out that phone number. But when we reach a certain point, they are the only ones that have the authority and the ability to erase your FSA ID and allow you to create a new one. So again, as parents are creating this, take a picture, write it down, put it in the contacts of their phone, do whatever needs to be done so that we can kind of remember that. You cannot use the same email or cell phone number as somebody else. So parents, you can't both use the same cell phone number. You can't use the same email. They have to be unique. And if somebody's already used it, it will stop you. If you do not have a Social Security, if the parent does not have a Social Security number, they can still create an FSA ID. And the idea is that they will have a special authorization or approval process. It didn't work very well, I got to tell you. Still there, we're moving forward, but eventually they kind of threw their hands in the air and just said, forget it. You don't have a Social Security number, put everything in, we're going to approve it, and you can get it all things done and move on. The identity match is a knowledge-based identity match that they're going to be using. This is similar, in fact, it's done by a credit bureau, but it's similar that the credit companies will use where they ask you questions that only you would know. I can tell you it worked okay for most people living in the United States who were U.S. citizens or permanent residents. It didn't work very well for our Pacific Island colleagues and our students in Micronesia and Marshall Islands and Palau. The knowledge-based verification just wasn't terribly smooth. And that kind of, again, they threw their hands up and just let them go ahead and do it. We do need that identity match. Students from Micronesia who have been in the process for a little while, more than 2 years, and they may have received a pseudo Social Security number. Remember, in the past, we used to enter all zeros, and then they would be assigned a number, and they would then do their financial aid with that number as they proceeded on. If they have that, they're going to go through a knowledge-based verification of their identity so that we can make sure that all is good with them. This is there's the little box down at the bottom here that you would check off if you don't have a Social Security number. Don't do this lightly. This is dangerous. And if you're not from Pacific Islands, if you're not from the Federated States of Micronesia or the Marshall Islands or Palau, you have to have a social security number as a student. Parent, no such requirement. So parents may check off, I do not have a social security number, and then continue. This will then start the process where they get into a knowledge-based confirmation of who you are. And if that doesn't work, then you have to start providing them with documents. And now this thing will drag on and on and on. Professional judgment, just so you are using the same terms that we are in the schools. Unusual circumstances. This is now what we're calling dependency override, or what we're supposed to. We're not using it, but it's now called unusual circumstances. So unusual circumstances is where the financial aid office steps in and declares the student independent. Special circumstances is a different category. This has to do with things like loss of income, loss of a job, where we need to adjust components of either the cost of attendance or income components of the SAI. So the numbers where we're adjusting a FAFSA calculation is special. Dependency override is going to be unusual. These are kind of the categories that we're using. So the special circumstances, this is the change in family income, unemployment, dislocated working, stuff's changed, and whatever shows on your 23 taxes isn't what's happening in your life today. Now, if you have got a raise and you're making a lot more money right now than you did in 23, quiet, don't tell me. If I don't know, I don't have to do anything about it. Unusual or dependency override, these would apply for things like human trafficking, refugee or asylee status, parental abandonment, or they're gone, they're just not around, unable to contact parents, or if contacting parents would put the student at risk. We are not going to put a student at risk to get information. We're going to declare them independent and we'll move on without the information. So those would be the dependency override categories. And again, termination made by the institution, the school. So for those of you who've known me for a very long time, this is a chart I used to show in financial aid nights. I've kind of given up. It's old. This was around when Jay Leno was hosting the Tonight Show, because he actually put it up on the Tonight Show and had a big laugh over the whole thing. This is supposed to represent the simplified view of financial aid as reported by the Department of Education to Congress many, many years ago. And of course, go ahead, try and follow it. It's the most obscene thing I've ever seen. So we made fun of that, but we gave it up and we moved on. And then last year we got this. And this came out of NASFA, highly respected, my buddies, good people. This is the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. And they produced this chart. And this is specifically intended to help FAAs, financial aid advisors, visualize how eligibility for Pell Grant and other aid will be determined under the provisions of the blah, blah, blah. Meaning this isn't for students or parents. This is for financial aid professionals. We're supposed to use this to help us understand who gets what, who's going to be eligible. Well, I spent time trying to go through this and trying to understand it. And as I got about halfway through, I figured it out. That's not what this is for. This is a drinking game. This is where you sit down with a bunch of other FAAs and each person reads the first step. And when you read the first step, if you go, huh, then you have to take a shot. And it moves to the next person who reads the next one. And if they go, huh, then you have to take a shot. I would recommend that you have at least 2 bottles of some substance, because you ain't going to get through this without saying, huh, many, many times. So that's the only reason I included that, just for a little amusement. Financial aid toolkit, it's there. The federal government has this available to you. It's really, really good. They got a lot of good stuff for you, a lot of good information. And I will be the first to bitch and moan about what's not working, but this works. There's got some good information for you regarding financial aid. All right, real quick here. I want to take a look at the FAFSA. Now, remember, I told you that there are no major or significant changes to the FAFSA. I did my best to find a couple, and I'll show them to you as we go through. This is the section for unusual circumstances. So this is the question where the students doesn't have parents, doesn't have access to parents. They're in jail, they're gone, they're never around. It's just unreasonable to expect that we're going to get parental information. If the student falls into this category, they're going to check off yes. And what that's going to do is it's going to let them continue the FAFSA. It's going to let them complete the FAFSA without parent information. It will tell them multiple times throughout the process that this is not a valid student or FAFSA. You are not going to receive a valid SAI. They will get an SAI, but the whole process is provisional. From here, the student will have to contact the school and talk to them and tell me what's going on. I guarantee you, we have our own procedure, our own process, our own forms that you're going to need to fill out before this is actually going to work. Once I get the information I need, then we will then declare the student to be independent and everything is fine, life is good, and we can move forward. But unfortunately, students have the idea that they think this is enough and they do this and they don't have to talk to me. That's not the case. You got to talk, or the students got to talk to the financial aid office. This has been the worst question they could have come up with. The wording is terribly wrong. It has caused us no end of grief. I mean, literally thousands of rejected FAFSAs because of this question. And part of the problem here is we know students don't read. If you read this, including all the fine print at the bottom, it does explain what's going on. This is a question about our parents refusing to provide information. Not that we can't get to them. I mean, that was the other side, but this is full on parents saying, no, I'm not going to provide you the information. All they have done in that case is screw the student, because the student is technically not eligible for any financial aid if they don't provide parental information. So a parent's refusal to provide information does not make the student independent. It makes them ineligible for all aid, except maybe an unsubsidized loan. Parent refuses, the student may be eligible to take out an unsubsidized loan only. And I say maybe because it's up to the school. It's our call. If we decide we don't want to do this, then no, they're not going to be eligible for that unsubsidized loan. If we decide that we want to let the student do that, then we're going to have other things. I'm going to need a written document from family, from the parents, that says, we're not going to help. We're not going to provide our student with any information. And then I can approve an unsubsidized loan. I don't like doing this. I don't want students taking out loans, period. And to say that's all you're going to get is this unsubsidized loan is not a good thing. We're not helping anybody by refusing to provide information. This is the question today. And you know that because up here it says FAFSA form 2024-25, and it's student other circumstances. Well, I made a joke last year about other circumstances, special circumstances, unusual circumstances, blah, on and on. This is the homeless question. Is the student currently homeless, or are they unaccompanied and at risk of being homeless? Yes or no. Again, if doesn't apply, you answer no. If you answer yes, there are some follow-up screens that will show up and ask who can verify it, whether it's somebody is at your high school campus, McKinney-Vento kind of thing, or whether it's the head of a shelter, whatever. But you don't know that's a homeless until you read it a little bit. So moving on, this is the new one. This is a change. This is all I got for you. This is the biggest change we got, is they renamed it to student homelessness. Again, this is 25-26. The same wording, same question, same game. Check off yes, other boxes pop up. Check off no, move on. But it's now called student homelessness.
Hey, Frank,
Yeah.
we got a great question in here about a student who was adopted. So
Yep.
this is the scenario. What happens if a student was adopted from foster care and then abandoned at 18 because adoptive payments have stopped? Parents have refused information and even legal documents. How do we address this?
Okay, student was adopted. So the adoptive parents are considered parents. And at the point where where the student turns 18 and the funding apparently sounds like it's dried up, I would say if the student has basically been kicked out of the house and they're not living with the adoptive parents anymore, they're on their own, I would petition for a dependency override. This is a student for really no fault of their own, but cannot provide parental information, and the parents, it would be unreasonable to expect that we would get parental information in this case. And I think the student would qualify for dependency override. I would grant it. I'm going to need some information from the student. I'm going to need it in writing. I'm going to need a form. I need all the stuff I need, but it sounds like a good case for dependency override. If the student is still living with the grandparents, then I think it gets a little more complicated. How are we claiming the grandparents or the adoptive parents didn't kick them out, but still refusing to provide? That gets a little trickier. I would want to talk to the student before advising any more than that.
Okay.
was-
There's just a more follow-up information is, yes, it's true. They were kicked out, and was denied a dependency override with a letter of support.
Go to a different school. That's obscene. That somebody would deny that. That just irritates me. That somebody's being lazy. And unfortunately, he says glibly, you cannot appeal a financial aid office's decision. If I deny it and I say no, I'm not going to do it, you don't have any other option, or the only other option you have is go to another school.
Yeah.
There is no appeal process for that. It's my word or the school's word is final.
Awesome. Thank you. Back to you.
All right, so here's another little change. This is looking at the student tax information. Now, again, it's not necessarily the tax information because I'm going to move that over if it even exists, but that's going part of the automatic process with IRS. But these are some questions that we needed to answer because it doesn't show up in the transfer. And it really is for parents, and parents, you're going to get the exact same questions, but we do it for the student just in case. The first they both have to do with the rollover. Did you cash in one retirement plan and then take that money and put it in another retirement plan? The deal here is that in doing so, the value or the amount of the original retirement plan may have to be reported as taxable income, and it would show up on your tax form as income. And it's kind of an inflated number because you don't really have it to pay for the student's education because it's been put back into another retirement plan, and we don't report retirement plans. So that's what we mean by rollover. Again, that doesn't show up on your tax paper. The only thing that shows up is you cashed in the IRA or you cashed in a retirement plan. It doesn't tell me on the tax form that you opened a new one. Therefore, we're going to ask you the question because I don't want to count that money against the student if it was just rolled over into another. If you're not sure, go ask your tax preparer. They'll know one way or the other if there's a rollover going on here. The last two questions here is 00, amount of college grant scholarships, AmeriCorps benefits reported to the IRS. You didn't have anything reported to the IRS. Even if you are currently a college student and you got a Pell Grant, it wasn't reported to IRS. And I don't believe the student has got a foreign earned income exclusion. I don't really know what a foreign earned income exclusion is, but I don't think the student's got it. So basically on this page for most of our students, we're going to be 0, 0, 0, 0. And if it is a number question, you need to make sure that you put a 0 in the box. Don't just skip it. Give me a 0. This is where the student invites parents or where they provide me with the parental information. Now, I'm going to give you a trick here that we figured out over a year of doing these to kind of make things flow easier. Not supposed to be like this, but the truth is it works better. Rather than providing both parents at this point, have the student provide me one parent's information. Obviously, we want that to be the parent that has the FSA ID if it is only one parent, but only one parent's information. I'm going to need the other parent, but I'll get it later. I'll get it when the parent one signs in. They will then provide me with the other parent's information. That works smoother. I want to get the student section done, signed, and filed away before we start complicating it. So give me the one parent's information. That parent's information, in fact, all parent information, must agree with the information used to create the FSA ID. So when this parent created their FSA ID, and it had to have been 3 to 5 days ago, because if otherwise it's not active and none of this is going to work, give me the exact same information, which means I need the name as it appears on the Social Security card, the date of birth, the Social Security number, obviously. Good point for the student to call mom or dad over and say, yeah, can you help me finish this part? If it is not identical information, and I don't know any stronger way to say it than it has to be identical to what was used, this will crash. It'll stop. And it won't let you go forward. And you'll get a red box that say, unfortunately, FAFSA is no longer available today. And that's a lie. It has nothing to do with what's going on. What's going on is your parents' information is not matching with their FSA ID, but it won't tell you that. It won't tell you at all. And the students, unfortunately, or parents will log out and log back in believing that it's not available. Again, that was a lie. It's the data doesn't match. Why they can't tell you, we don't know, but I promise you, they're not going to tell you. So make sure the information agrees. And if you flat out can't move beyond here, make sure that FSA ID was created 3 to 5 days ago and that it has matched. You may need to log out. You don't need to save, by the way. It's an automatic function this year. So you don't need to save. Just get out, have the parent log back in, have them go to the upper right-hand side, click on their name, move down, click on settings, and then go to the left-hand side and click on personal information, and it'll show what information they used. And even if you don't like it, that's what you need to use here, because that's the only way we're going to get a match. It's got to match, or we're not moving any farther. Finish up all the rest of it. The student gets down here and they will check the box that says I, and then they click sign. This is working now. It didn't work for most of last year. So, oh boy, students would come down and they would sign, or they would sign and submit, and they haven't done the parent, and the application would be submitted, and then it would get rejected because the parent didn't sign the application, and they couldn't do a correction for 2 more months because it was just a royal pain, and it's a problem. It seems to be fixed, because now when the student gets down here, it says sign only. So the student can go ahead and click on that, and then the parent can do theirs, and the parents will say sign and submit. However, if you're working through this and you happen to see it say sign and submit, don't do it. Leave it, go do the parent side first, and then come back and sign and submit, because we haven't provided parental information. Once the student signs theirs, they're done, they log out. Only one person at a time on the FAFSA. Parent logs in. Parent early in the game, this is the screen you're going to see. This is asking for the other parent's information. So I do need both of you. Student gave me one, you give me the other one. If this parent has an FSA ID, then this information must be exactly the same as what they used to create their FSA ID. If you're having problems, because this one was created 10 years ago and nobody remembers the email, nobody remembers the cell phone number, blah, 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 leave the Social Security number blank. And actually, there'll be a box down here that says, I don't have a Social Security number. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to solve the problem. But if this parent filed a joint return with the other parent, then I don't need this parent to have an FSA ID. I'm not going to have them provide approval, because I already got approval from the first parent, and it's a joint tax return. So you can kind of get by this by not giving a Social Security number. Now, if this parent filed separate taxes and they need to provide their approval, that's not going to work. This is a shortcut only if we don't need them to have an FSA ID. Leave the Social Security number out and move forward. Life is good. Take a breath. Family size, this is what we were talking about. We will pick up, in fact, let me just take it to the next screen. This is somebody who's answered yes. My number is different than what it is on the taxes. I need to give you more information. This is what shows up. It expands. Now, the FAFSA you've already signed the consent or the approval back in the beginning, which means I already got your tax information. I know how many you claimed on your taxes. In this case, the family or the parent had claimed 4, and that would be parent 1, parent 2, student, and 1 other child on there. If you have other people, grandparents, grandma, grandpa, other children, maybe other people living for whom you provide at least 50% of the support, you can include them in that box down at the bottom, and that will increase your parent size. Number in college, unfortunately, I have to report it's still not working, meaning Congress hasn't done anything. We leave the question here because it was supposed to be part of the formula last year. Congress did an oops and forgot to write it into the law. And their response was basically, oh, well, the financial aid office can use professional judgment and take care of this. We'll fix it next year. They lied to us. They did not fix it. They didn't even look at this. They got enough issues other than FAFSA to deal with, which means we will still ask the question. It will not do anything or make any adjustments in the formula whatsoever. You do have the right to contact the financial aid office at the school your student will be attending and ask them to make an adjustment. It's up to the school. And I will tell you, I'm not terribly pleased with what I'm seeing across the country. There are many, many, many schools who are not doing this, and it's their option. They can decide not to do it. I don't think it's fair. I think parents that have multiple kids in college need a break. They need to have some help. And this was one way that we used to give it. But again, it is up to the school. It doesn't matter how Frank feels. They don't ask me. They make their own decisions. Here, the parent will go down and sign. Now, they clicked a little box that says, I agree. And then you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, this now says sign and submit. Because we're done. The student did their part. Now we can submit this thing in. Stuff coming up. We do have our annual FAFSA 101 session on Thursday. That's next week, isn't it? Virtual, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Registration at collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. FAFSA 101, if you're unfamiliar with this, is just a couple hours that we go through the FAFSA screen by screen. There's no revelations happening in here. It is just walking through, filling out a FAFSA, which means those of you who have been around as long as I have, or even close, you shouldn't be there. There's nothing new. You know what you're doing. If you're really bored, come and join us. But otherwise, I got nothing new I'm showing. I'm just going through 25, 26 FAFSA and helping people understand how it's completed. We are in the midst of our financial aid nights. So Lauren, DJ Gusty Gus, and myself, every Wednesday night, we're doing a financial aid night online, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Again, registration is free. collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. It's an hour and a half workshop, and it's pretty good. Very good, actually. Starting in November, we will have our scholarship workshops. There will be 2, November 7th and November 21. And we invite students to participate in these. This is scholarship information only. Again, registration, collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. You can get more information about these sessions at collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. In January, thereabouts, we will be switching to FAFSA completion, and it'll be a virtual workshop that we do every Wednesday night to help people complete their FAFSAs. We are out and about. We are on your campuses. If you need our support to help you with an event, please contact us and let us know. We'll be there. We're here to support you, and we'll muster the troops and do what we can to help you get through these FAFSA completions. This is kind of the contact information throughout the islands. These are the financial aid people on each of the different islands. If you have anything special you have to deal with, feel free to reach out to any of my colleagues in these offices. And I've just realized we did not talk about when FAFSA is opening. I guess I totally forgot to put a slide in there, and we need to talk about it because it's a little weird. FAFSA was supposed to open on October 1st. and they started hemming and hawing and saying, well, and the community went to them and said, look, take extra time if you need it, but make sure it works completely. Make sure we can do corrections, make sure it gets processed, give us a fully functional FAFSA experience. And what they did is said, okay, we'll do that. We'll promise you that. They lie. I don't know. But we're going to delay the opening until December 1st. So technically, what I'm supposed to tell you is that FAFSA is not going to open until December 1st. What they are doing is testing it live time as they go along. So on October 1st, it's going to open to about 500 or 600 students. And they took applications from non-government offices who specialize or who work with FAFSA completion and selected a group of them that will each have a group of students. And that group of people, that cohort, will have the opportunity to open the FAFSA, and then it'll be monitored, it'll be watched, so that we make sure that it works not only from the federal side, but also that schools are receiving the information and the information schools are receiving is correct and can be functioning. They will then expend that. That's called Beta Group A. On October 15th, they'll expand that to Beta Group B, and Beta Group B will be selected high schools that will be able to open it to their students and do the same thing. Limited numbers, complete the FAFSA, it will be checked. I know a few of our schools in Hawaii have applied for the Beta B section. I don't think you're going to get it. What I'm hearing is they're keeping all this on the mainland close to where the federal offices are. They have issues sending people to Hawaii, and they are going to be in place to monitor. On November 1st, we'll go to Beta Group ABC, and they'll expand it by adding 100 more high schools and several thousand more students and see how it goes. They actually have a schedule Beta ABC D, which would be on November 15th. So here's my crazy and wild kind of prediction for you. Though the official date is December 1st, if everything goes well in their beta testing A and B, I think they're going to open this on November 15th. I think they're going to surprise us so they all get a pat on the back and say, oh, look what we did. We did it earlier than we promised you. Aren't we good people? We're not lying. And I don't think they'll take that opportunity because of that guy they got from College Board. He seems to be going for it. Other than that, thank you very, very much for attending today. That kind of completes it. We'll answer any questions you may have. Keep in mind, you can always reach us. Both Lauren, DJ Gusty Gus, and myself are at fasfa@hawaii.edu. This is available to you anytime. And it's available to your students and your families. And we don't care where they're going. We don't care what stage they're at. If they've got a financial aid question, we're here for them at fasfa@hawaii.edu.
In that last slide, we forgot to mention that the FAFSA Hawaii hotline is still live and still available for students and parents across the state.
You need to talk to the person who put this together because they forgot a lot of stuff that should have been on here, like that phone number. What's our FAFSA hotline number?
The FAFSA Hawaii hotline is 808-842-2540.
One more time.
That's 808-842-2540.
Your students, parents can call us. Now, I will tell you right now, we're working on a leave a message and we'll get right back to you. But with three of us, we're getting right back to you on this thing. So either email or through the hotline, we can help you all the way.
Yeah. All right, we have a great question that's come in. I just answered one of these questions on the Q&A, but here, Godfather.
What you got?
Is a scholarship that exceeds tuition reported to the IRS? And if a parent gets a 1099 from a college about a scholarship award, do they file it on their taxes?
Technically, yes. But I can tell you generally it's not going to happen. It's not going to get reported. Who's to say whether I use the scholarship to pay for tuition or whether I use other things that I don't have to report to IRS? So it's very rare that we're going to report anything. But if it is above and beyond the cost of attendance, meaning the entire cost of the college. Technically, it's supposed to be reported to IRS. Look, guys, I've worked in this business for 35 years. I've never reported to IRS. That means I probably go to jail tomorrow from the IRS police, but it just doesn't happen. The second part of that question, you got a 1099 from the school. I think what you probably got was a 1098, not a 1099.
Right.
A 1099 is a miscellaneous income kind of form that's used for all other types of self-employment, rental income, things like that. And that income is being reported to IRS and should be included on your tax papers. But I think what you got was a 1098. Schools are required to provide all students with a 1098. 1098 is a record of what you paid and is used to claim educational tax credits on your tax form. So there's a couple different ones, the lifelong learning, the educational tax credit, that require that you have documentation to show how much you paid in tuition. It's what did it cost you? And then you can use that as a tax credit. Again, that's a 1098, different than a 1099 by one number, but different.
There we go. All right, you heard it here from the Godfather of Financial Aid. If there are any last questions, we will take them now. Otherwise, we'll release you guys to have some lunch. How about that?
Hey, one last little piece of good news. The copy of today's slides has already been posted because Lauren is just awesome at what she does. She's organized and coordinated, and she gets things done, makes it happen. So has been posted to collegeswithinreachhawaii.com. Eventually, we'll get it posted at pacfa.org, but seeing as that's my responsibility, don't go looking for it tomorrow because it ain't going to be there on the weekend. But we do have it up for you at collegeswithinreachhawaii.com.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, she's not called the Cash Money Princess for nothing. Ooh. All right, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. With that said, on behalf of the Godfather of Financial Aid, Mr. Frank Green, the Cash Money Princess, Lauren Trudeau, and all of our presenters today at our financial aid update, we want to say mahalo to each and every one of you guys for coming out and joining us on today's excursion. And we will see you guys again shortly in this semester and definitely into the spring. I am DJ Gusty Gus. Aloha.
Aloha, everybody.